We will call the Lake Mills Parks Board meeting of April 17th, 2024 to order at 5:30 p.m. We'll look at the quick overview of the agenda. That's the call to order, our roll call, our welcome to Anita Martin, guests and presenters, which appears to be Eric Schreiner of the City Parks. And then we'll go into the Parks Board minutes from February 21st and get our director's report from Eric. Then we will do public comments, including emails, and then our new business, which is 8. I believe we go on to second page, which is discussing the topics of, well, this is all recorded from along. In the amount of detail needed in the meeting minutes, in that these are all recorded. 9 is our announcements, and then 10 being recommendations for future agendas. And we'll talk about them more detailed. Next meeting is May 15th, and then we'll look at the time to adjourn. So that is the agenda overview. Now moving to the roll call. So
Nope, that's the only time you got to do it, so you should be good now.
Okay. So roll call. Tim Sprecher.
Mike Meisman.
McCray Baker.
Anita Martin.
And to my knowledge, we are all present and accounted for because this is our current board makeup. So welcome to Anita. And what I'd like to do is have a welcome. Please give us a bit of your background, Anita, and then we will all share a little bit of our background so you get an idea where we come from.
Okay, great. So for the last 4 years I've been, sorry, this microphone thing is, okay. For the last 4 years I've been on the county board serving District 13, which is City of Lake Mills. Before that, I was doing writing and reporting for some of the local newspapers. For several years, I ran or facilitated a small grassroots environmental group that was primarily focusing on Lake Mills area. My initial background from schooling is actually a Bachelor of Science degree in clinical dietetics. So that's kind of a little bit about me. We've lived in Lake Mills since 2001, my husband and I, and we have 2 dogs.
So you Bachelor of Science in Clinical Diabetes?
Clinical dietetics.
Dietetics, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did a lot of hospital and skilled care facility work and consulting and stuff for about 15 years, and then I kind of switched directions and went into writing and reporting for about 15, 20 years.
Oh.
So Anita, please speak into the microphone.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
these are proximity microphones, so
okay.
we should be okay.
Okay,
Right.
we're okay. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
Nope, you're okay.
Okay.
Do you know if, I know with the upstairs with the recordings, if you can search, like you go on the agenda, you hit agenda item 9.7 or whatever, and it takes you to that. Do you know if that works down here? Probably not.
I believe it should be, because what Dave will do, from my understanding, is he'll timestamp some of the things within the meeting itself. I believe so.
Okay.
That's nice.
That is
Okay.
nice.
McCray Baker. My wife and I have lived in Lake Mills for 4 years. We live over on East Lake Street. Professionally, I am a drinking water engineer.
Oh.
Work for the state. Just a quick summary.
Very good.
Mike Meisman, my wife and I moved back. She was from originally moved back here now 7 years ago, and have been involved in various local environmental things, RLIA, sampling for phosphorus, frog counts, etc. And then I'm also on the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's my 3rd year, I think, on Parks Board.
Tim Sprecher, I have lived in Lake Mills since 1996 and have been on the Parks Board for going on, I think, a couple decades.
Wow.
And we are, I'm also certified arborist and master gardener. So that's a bit of my background. And Eric?
If
What?
you would like me to speak.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much Anita knows
Well,
about you.
I was born and raised in Lake Mills, so I've been here since 1994. My first position or first job really was for the City of Lake Mills Parks Department. So I've done all the aspect of the parks work before. Because of that position, I pursued a career in natural resource law enforcement, of which I was a park ranger for the state, for the DNR for a number of years. At which point I moved to the Lands and Facilities Bureau within the DNR, which is specifically recreational property development, recreational analysis on state-owned property for the most part. And I've been in this position come this June will be my 3rd year. So I'm very happy to be back with the City of Lake Mills.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Moving to the agenda item number 3 or 4, guests and presenters. Seeing none, we will move to the Parks Board minutes review and approval of the February 21st regular meeting minutes, which Madison did attach to the email, and I have that in front of me. So
I did look at it.
do people have that in front of them that they could read and approve, change?
I read through it and I didn't have any edits to it.
I read them and I thought they were very thorough. I obviously, can't vote on approving because I wasn't here, but I appreciate all the information that was included.
Mike, they're your product, so of course they're wonderful, right?
I think rave reviews, and I'm wondering who's going to play me in the movie, really. That's my question.
Okay. And as the same, I did not see any things that we had to change. So I believe we are able to make a motion to approve the minutes as written. Do I have a motion to approve?
I will motion to approve.
And I will second that motion. So the meetings are approved as written. Now, Mike, do you know, right now it says draft as a watermark on the minutes. Is that something do we ask Madison or someone to take
Right.
the draft off once they've been approved?
I'll contact her and say they were accepted as drafted, and she then will
Okay.
submit the final.
All right, thank you. Then moving on to the Parks and Forestry Director's report from Mr. Schreiner. What do we have, Eric?
I would like to make one clarification. I kind of sold our department short by 1 year.
On the minutes or what?
No. Nope, just on the report.
Okay.
Within the report, this is actually the 32nd consecutive year that City of Lake Mills has been receiving Tree City USA awards. I mistakenly wrote 31. My apologies. One of the things that I would like to figure out is Tree City USA is a fairly normal thing for municipalities to have when they do have an urban forestry department, but I would like to see where we stand as far as the consecutive number of years that they've been Tree City USA's throughout the state. I know 32 years is a fairly substantial amount. I'm just not sure where that lies within the other state municipalities, but I am curious. That being said, we did receive our very first growth award for the city in 2023. This is something that does need to be applied for. There are basically a points-based system in several different categories, and it is reviewed, or basically the qualifications or accomplishments are reviewed by both the state forester as well as the actual Arbor Day Foundation Board. The city would be eligible every 5 years for this award if they meet those requirements. So it's not something that can be basically awarded by default. You do have to show substantial growth within the urban forestry department within the municipality to apply for it. So the next time that we could potentially be available to receive it would be 2028. Focusing on different areas of those actual 5 categories of a growth award is something I'll continue to do for the next subsequent 5 years. So very proud of that for both my staff and the department as a whole. We will be planting
May I
trees.
just pause you there,
Oh,
Eric, for a
yep.
moment? In that, if it's possible, going forward on your director's report, might you put a link to Tree City USA?
Yep.
And then the growth award, so that if someone is interested, they
Yep.
could click onto that hyperlink and see
More info.
what it entails?
Yep, not a problem.
I do it in the minutes anyway, and I've done that in the past, so if you want, because I attach your director's report, and then in the minutes, I can just slide that in there too.
Okay.
Okay.
So either way.
And just reach out to me if you need any links or anything like that.
Sure.
We will be planting more than likely the first week of May. It is going to be weather dependent for the most part, but we will be receiving nursery stock on the 26th of this month with expected planting the following week. Myself, as well as engineering staff and one of our arborists for the department, did specifically attend a tree ordinance workshop specifically for tree protection policies in Southwest Chicago last week. Now that's applicable because the ad hoc committee on urban forestry has been asked by city council to address potential protection policies for the urban forestry department, and it was a beneficial workshop for the most part. So it was nice to see some other people from out of state and some not so familiar faces and actually connect with people outside of Wisconsin. So that was actually very nice as well. For park-specific things, the athletic field and shelter reservation forms have been in substantial use. The requesters can now pay online, and having that availability to pay online and see the use calendars online and available has been very, very beneficial. A lot of appreciation goes to Rachel Italiano, our administrative assistant, for doing that. But it's definitely streamlined and made it a lot easier for people to go through shelter reservations and see what athletic fields are being used and what open times are available. Vicki Whitcliffe, I know you know Vicki, Tim, but she's been working very diligently to organize the volunteers for the 2024 season for the flower beds. There are, I believe, over 26 flower beds in areas that are maintained by volunteers, and they do a fantastic job. I would like to say they are a few volunteers short this year. Some of the volunteers are getting older and a little bit more difficult for them to do the maintenance. So if you know of anybody who is looking for a potential volunteer opportunity or would like to take a little bit of time planting some of those garden beds, please let myself know, and I will be attaching a link to that volunteer request on the city website, of which Vicky's information will be listed on as well.
Now, Eric, when it says flower bed, there's flower beds and or planters, am I correct?
Planters are maintained by Legendary Lake Mills. So the planters in those square ceramic bins or whatever, they are maintained by Legendary Lake Mills. So this would be areas like underneath the Commons Park sign or our park's entrance signs, entrances into parks, correct.
Okay.
And a lot of the areas as well, like in front of the library and in front of the municipal building. So it would be limiting from those planter beds themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Currently, we're doing a lot of parks preparation work. I call this generally spring cleanup and spring preparation work. This includes general grounds maintenance, cleaning, our first initial mowings of the season when weather dependent, as well as basically installing a lot of our fixtures and utilities. So this includes restroom openings, our athletic field preparations, our pier installations, batting cages, volleyball nets, all of that. And we try to stagger those, try to do one of those at least a day for the most part, with restrooms probably being one of the more important ones, which are open as of this afternoon. But we will continue to do that, and my goal or template for the most part is I always try to have all of those completed by May 1st. If we can get them completed prior, we absolutely will. For example, our restroom openings, but May 1st is my deadline for the most part to have them open, and sooner if weather conditions are available. The piers at Sandy Beach Boat Launch were installed last week Friday, just wanted to confirm that. And we are currently fully staffed within the department, which is the first time we have been fully staffed since I've been here, which is fantastic.
Wow.
We have both filled a full-time position of which that employee will be overseeing the facilities grounds maintenance, which is like City Hall, Library, and Fire Department, as well as Commons Park and Bartles Beach. So I'm very excited to have a full-time staff member. And then one of the more difficult things is finding our summer part-time help availability. We rely very heavily on our grounds maintenance staff that are summer part-time helpers. They're primarily college-age students who are coming back for a summer position who live in Lake Mills, and we do have 5 of them, which is fantastic. That's the most we've had since I've been here. And then we do have a part-time, approximately 20 to 30 hour a week employee who is a retired gentleman who just mows, and he is a phenomenal asset to the department. He's a fantastic gentleman, and he provides a lot of help for it. So having a dedicated employee completing the mowing frees up the other full-time staff to do other duties. So very much excited to have him back. The last thing I'd specifically like to touch on is regarding the Rotary Park pickleball courts. The next step, all of the materials to complete this project are on hand, ready to go, basically whenever the contracted work is completed. The next step is the actual tennis court or athletic style surfacing that's going on. That is weather dependent as well. There needs to be substantial dry periods on that asphalt. And then I spoke with the contractor. There needs to be a period of 3 days where they're consistently above 60 degrees both at day and night. So as soon as those conditions allow, the surfacing will be done. At that point, the concrete work can be completed, which is installing footings for both permanent benches and the net posts themselves. Depending on the cure time for that, a couple days to approximately a week, we can install the actual permanent net posts themselves, as well as install the nets, and it should be ready for use. One thing I would like to touch on is we did have a volunteer. I very much apologize if I forget the gentleman's name, but he's creating some very nice bench backing boards. So we have the bench frames on hand, and he'll be building the boards for them. And I'm very confident they'll look very nice, at which the memorial plaques or recognition plaques will be inlaid into them permanently. And he's done a substantial amount of work and is a very expert woodworker, so I'm very much looking forward to see how those look once installed. My expected completion date, May 1st, is kind of pushing it in my opinion. Looking at weather conditions, I would expect the courts to be playable by end of May is what I'm hoping for. Definitely hoping to have a court open and serviceable by Memorial Day weekend. Any other questions?
Not so much a question. Thank you for the report, Eric. What I'd ask is, might you be able to put sort of like the definition of some of these acronyms, the AIS tools? Is that
Yes.
aquatic invasive species?
You're absolutely correct.
All right. So yeah, just to put that in there, so if people are looking at it, they know what it is. Same thing with microterm. We can make links to it so people know what they are. And the same thing, what is CBCW? I know I should know, but I don't remember.
CBCW is Clean Boats, Clean Water Staff.
Okay.
And then I see another one as well, CIP projects. It's capital improvement projects.
Right. But I think we just spell it out,
Yep.
and if there are things to put links, I think we're going to serve the public and ourselves a bit with that.
Not a problem.
The other question I have, Eric, is someone asked me, the dredging is complete for the channel. What is the depth now?
Approximately 4 feet.
All right.
Now, it is slightly deeper at its deepest point and is slightly higher at the mouths of the channel for the most part, but the goal is to have a as close to 4 foot depth as possible. So I would say it's definitely reestablished in navigable waters. Now we do still have restoration work to do on the turf areas as well. It's just been very wet. We haven't allowed equipment operation access in there, but approximately 4 feet.
All right, thank you. And then on this, your last bullet point, the needs for the Parks Board, review the pricing schedules and parks fees. Is that something that you are prepared to give us at the May meeting?
No, this is something that is kind of a carryover from prior director's reports as well. It's just something I would still like to have continue discuss when we have time or available for it.
Okay.
From my experience that I've seen the last 3 years as we're reviewing pricing schedules and fees, it just seemed like they weren't annually reviewed for the most part. They may very well be appropriate for the current year and the subsequent year, but I would at least like them to be reviewed just so we don't wind up in the bind of they haven't been updated for substantial amounts of time.
Yes, and I know in the past, we've looked at those, and some of them hadn't been updated for a number of years.
Yep.
And so we want to make sure that we're not surprising people by
Yeah.
giving them but we try to be comparable to the other municipalities around here, and that we want to be fair with the pricing and give people fair
Yep.
notice.
You're exactly right. So it's, like I said, it's just something I'd like to continue to be a annual assessment for the most part.
Yeah. Thank you. Any comments, questions for Eric on the Facilities and Grounds Director's Report of April 17th? All right, if not, let's move forward to public comments, including emails, number 7. Anyone have emails that they have received that they would care to get into the record?
I had a meeting and an email because I think her name is Ms. Heitman on the tree ad hoc tree committee, and she's been approaching various folks in town who have been involved in environmental movements, and gave us a report on her committee and reviewed policies. And one question I had, Eric, she maintained that there's a policy to remove a certain number or percentage of mature trees annually. Is that? I did invite her to come to the meeting, by the way, so that would be the most efficient way of doing it, but I had to ask.
As far as policy, no. We do not remove trees just to reach a number. Just similar police departments do not write tickets just to reach a number as well. What we do is we try to prioritize trees. Now, obviously, there are things as far as ones that are needing of removal for health, public safety, etc. And we try to prioritize them as much as possible regarding how many we're going to be moving or removing. Looking at normal operations throughout the year, it's approximately 40 trees is about what we remove per year, but that's continuously fluctuating. We are not striving to reach that number by any means, but there are trees of decaying health and condition that necessitate removal, and there are duties that we have to do to remove those trees, but there's no number associated with that we're striving to do. Now, as far as planting, one of my goals or my personal goals for the department is planting as many trees as basically we are capable of planting for the most part. So if we remove 40 trees within a season, for example, my goal is always try to plant 3 times as number of trees as we remove. So if we remove 40 trees a season, I would like our staff to plant 120 throughout the municipality. So that's something I would like to continue doing and striving for.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
The other one was an email from a gentleman on the RLIA board, and they were interested in the status of the Sandy Beach project. And he said, in particular, he'd gone over the Mead and Hunt report, and they had, and this may not be in your wheelhouse, but or anybody's, but I thought I'd bring it up, that they were interested that the parking slots are currently 127 normal, or at least when that report was done in 2018, 15 short-term trailers, 37 long-term, and 105 mobile homes. Mead and Hunt's plan called for increasing the standard parking spaces from 127 to 360, mostly to reflect what they'd hoped would be increased need because of the convention center, which is apparently no longer. They were going to increase short-term trailers from 15 to 17, decrease long-term trailer storage from 37 to 18, and cut down the number of trailers or mobile homes from 105 to 84. And so I just said I would ask. I didn't know if we'd have an answer or not.
So regarding the kind of phasing of that actual park restoration, for the most part, this would be the next following phase or proposed phase for the park development. Currently, it would be the installation of the restaurant facility, followed by the internal park developments, and that would be the beachfront, basically everything from where the existing chain link fence is moving forward, and the potential development of additional parking. The following phase would be the trailer home park area. So I don't have an update from that Mead and Hunt study. It hasn't yet been discussed. The priority's currently been the restaurant for the most part. Sure. I can give you an update on the restaurant though. The architect contracts negotiations have been complete. So at this point, we're looking to have a kickoff meeting with city staff, the architects, and potentially the restaurateur as early as next week. I'm not sure quite where the input will be from the restaurateur, but we're looking to have a collaborative work environment in designing the actual structure down there. So I assume after that kickoff meeting, hopefully next week, I should have more information at the May meeting.
Okay, so just to recapitulate, so there's like basically 3 rough phases. The current one, which is really absorbing lots of time, is the restaurant.
I believe it was 5 phases.
Okay.
I'd have to go back to the mean hunt study to actually confirm, but the first phase was the boat launch development. The second phase was kind of the internal park developments in a restaurant. The next phase was parking. I think the restaurant and the internal ones were separate phases as well. So if we have the boat launch, restaurant, internal park development, parking, and then trailer park, I believe there were 5
Internal
phases.
park being like volleyball courts, et cetera. And then,
But I would have to reference the mean
Sure.
hunt study to confirm that.
but so frankly, that the whole question of number of parking lots is up in the air depending on,
We are by no means ready to answer that question at all.
yeah, that's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Okay. Public comment or emails that,
So our meeting was in February. I think we all got some emails, but I think it may have been before February. Let me just double check. So February 27th, I guess we did, I think everyone on the Parks Board got an email from Nate Basting. Just to summarize, he lives on the, recently purchased a property on the Mill Pond and supports, I don't want to misquote, but I believe it was supports a full dredging of the Mill Pond so that it can be used for paddle sports such as kayaking, canoeing, and increase navigability of it.
But Craig, did you have a sense of what he meant by full dredging? Did he mean like the entire mill pond, including where there's cattails, or
Nope.
just the
That-
channel? Or
The dredging of the cattail area is just completely off the table. That's,
You're correct, yes.
We're not even considering that.
I've said that before, but then I was told that we hadn't taken anything off the table.
Nope. That the cattail area is. I don't think the Army
I
Corps
don't,
of
I think it
Engineers
was,
would let us
yes,
do
to
that.
my knowledge, the proposal's always been on the surface water
Okay.
and whatever underneath the surface.
Okay, so basically where there's water is what he's talking about. Okay.
Correct.
And one other point that he did bring up was that a partial dredging, it was discussed that there was an option of extending piers out further to reach deeper water. And the concern with partial dredging is that you may have homeowners their homeowners' piers taking over the mill pond as they extend out further and further to reach water that they can get their boats in and out of.
Just a comment to that comment, it is my understanding, and I apologize to not remember who gave us the information, but to my knowledge, state statute or DNR policy is that a homeowner, property owner, has the right to have their pier out to navigable water. So,
4 feet or something.
yeah, which I believe the standard is 4 feet. And so I think that's one of the concerns that came up there, is you could have it all the way out. It could be how many feet long. But that's, if we want to see some of that in action, go down to Lake Ripley and you'll see some of those piers quite a ways out there. But yes, that would be a consideration.
Do you want the name of that citizen involved in minutes?
So these were emails to all of us. That was
Oh, I
from.
think I saw that. They might have gone to my official account, which is a black hole I never can
Okay,
access.
but we actually got quite a few emails.
Oh.
Since that February meeting,
Yeah,
right?
that
Okay.
was Nate, and I lost the name.
You can just forward them to me if you'd like, and then I can just.
Okay.
But to the M. Neeson at Yahoo or
Okay.
whatever. But not to the city address, because I don't think yours works either.
A question. Would it be appropriate to ask if I could have copies of those, since I wasn't on the board then, or?
Absolutely.
It's okay?
Absolutely.
All
I
right,
would think,
just so
yeah, I
have a
would think so.
background.
Yeah,
Okay.
now as the board, I think it's your due diligence to read and catch up with
Okay.
that, so yes,
Okay,
Anita.
that'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, we can double check with Dan Drescher, the city attorney, to see if there'd be any issue, but I would be, as a citizen, I think you also have a right to those.
Okay, so do you want me to check with Dan, or you guys are going to?
Generally,
I check?
yes, I would just
Okay,
say go with
I
that,
will
let's say
check.
what he
Sure.
said.
Okay, sure.
Try to eliminate the
Yeah,
chances of
yeah, sure.
being
Yep, okay.
misunderstood.
Sure do. Will do.
Sorry, I had to restart my computer because it glitched, but there were a couple more emails that we all got, at least 2 more, since the last meeting in February.
So would you, what's it come up, could you, or can you give us like a
Yep, I'll give you a quick.
general overview of them?
Yep, I guess all of them were in support of at least some form of dredging the mill pond.
Yes, that I do recall. Yeah, and just as an aside to that, I was a bit surprised that we have not heard from any preservationists or others, which we had at the very, very beginning of this process about keeping everything pristine and not disturbing the mill pond and the depth and the weeds and all that. And to McCrae's report and those things is that what I've heard so far, the people who've been here, they want it deeper.
Yes, I guess as far as the public comments that I've seen, and we're kind of moving on to the next agenda topic, but it's fitting. We've only received the one, I guess, comment not in support of dredging the mill pond, and it wasn't necessarily from the environmental side of things; it was from the cost side of things.
Yes,
which
and I believe
is
that.
still, a very valid point.
Yes.
I'll just go through the
Yes.
emails here. Another one, February 29th, Sean Doe, another Doe or Dow, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Another one in support of a full dredging of the mill pond. This is another property owner, I believe, on the mill pond. Brings up the points that we were told about public safety, allowing the fire department to be able to launch their rescue boat through the pond, providing access to all community users, not just those who are on the mill pond, having a usable boat launch and being able to recreate on the mill pond itself. And then the point that was brought up in the Strand report of potential increased commerce to the downtown area from boaters coming off the lake. Okay. Then there was another one from Haley Elmendorf, just in support of saying that she uses the mill pond at least twice per week for fishing, kayaking, or people from the community use it for fishing, kayaking, paddle boarding, etc. And I believe increasing the usage of the mill pond would be a great asset to the community.
Just an aside on that, it's interesting. I don't usually see people fishing in the mill pond in particular. A couple of kids do off the pier, but the adult fishermen I've seen are all heading out to the lake. Is that?
I feel like, and I guess I haven't lived here very long, I guess a short time period compared to others, but when I first lived here, I would see a lot more people fishing right by the entrance to the dam. I think there's a little bit of a deep spot there. In recent years, I don't see, or haven't seen much of anyone. I think as a somewhat of a fisherman myself, it's just too choked up with weeds to fish in there. Eric?
Yeah, I can comment as well. I share the similar sentiment. I've seen a decreased amount of shoreline fishermen. I would normally see, and this is prior to me being in this position as well, subsequent years before, I would see a lot more shoreline fishermen, both along Veterans Lane by the fire department, as well as by Bartles Beach in the channel. And actually, a question came to myself this week as far as allowing bow fishing on the shoreline, which I can say is technically not allowed within the city limits to fire a projectile from parklands or public lands. But I do see quite a bit, or did see quite a bit of number of bow fishermen on the actual mill pond itself when they have their boats with the light rig setup, etc. So I do see it used, but I do recall seeing more use in the past just from shoreline fishermen.
And yes, I have seen people fishing in their smaller boats, their John boats or such that can get around the mill pond. But it's pretty much, as you said, a spring only event, and I believe they're going for bass or panfish at the time. But they do fish it. But I think it's just one of, like a lot of fisher people, they fish it till they go, then they might go out to the real lake. But I have seen people with boats fishing the mill pond.
And I guess, if you have a larger fishing boat, I guess last year they probably couldn't even make it through the channel, even if they wanted to fish in the mill pond.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it does, the culvert does limit the type of boats that can get in and out of the mill pond. All right, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, if I may make one comment as well. From my opinion as well, providing available shoreline fishing access opportunities is very important to me. There are private homeowners who have lakefront property, but that opportunity to shoreline fish may not always be an opportunity for a lot of people as well, like the general public. If you don't own lakefront property, our public beaches do not have fantastic fishing opportunities, obviously. So having access to either kids or people who don't have a watercraft or do not have lakefront property, having shoreline fishing opportunities is at least a recreation opportunity for me that I would like to continue pursuing in the department. I see the mill pond providing our most available access of shoreline fishing opportunities as well. So just something to consider.
Tacking onto that, I think a huge threat here is the yellow iris.
Yes.
Which we've seen more of, and we spent 3 or 4 hours, 5 of us last year, and we managed to clean out about 20 feet. That was it, and we couldn't get out into so I don't know what can be done, but that is
extensively manual operations to remove it, and it's very involved.
Unbelievable.
All right. Anita, do you have, you're part of the public, do you have any comments that you've want to share?
Well, I was going back and looking, and I guess it wouldn't fit in with probably what's being discussed today, but I think that one of the things that some people have expressed concern about is not putting, and this is more a restaurant issue, but I think it still falls in here, is not putting the restaurant any closer to the shoreline than what the last restaurant where it was located, for a variety of reasons. And then some people have also asked, because there's been interest in having, looking at ways to have more pervious surface and rain gardens and all that. There is some concern from some people that that ought to be maybe included more from the front end of the engineering rather than later, because it may be hard to incorporate some of the recommendations once the plans are solidified, So some people have concerns about the sequence of how some of those decisions would be made. So again, I'm just getting caught up a little bit, and I have to watch the former tapes and reread everything. But those are some things that came out, that I was concerned about when I reviewed. And if I'm understanding, most of the feedback so far as the mill pond itself, the dredging of the mill pond, is from residents that live on the mill pond, is mostly, or would you say the majority?
The most interest.
The most interest, okay.
Yes.
Some of the emails we have gotten, I know, are from people that do not live on the mill.
Okay, so I'll take a look, but they include their addresses on those?
Hit on the emails, hit or miss.
Yeah. Something maybe.
In the business owner, I believe the person that owns Sunshine Brewery, I don't know if he doesn't live on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
mill pond, but he does have a vested interest in it.
He does actually live
Yeah.
in the mill pond.
Oh, does he also?
Oh, he lives
Okay,
on-
well, then I've been corrected.
Okay.
So yes, and to my knowledge, we have not had a spokesperson from the Legion present to us, but they also have mill pond access, and they might, they do, in my understanding, they do allow people to fish off their property and such, so that's
Okay.
things to be
Okay.
aware of. The other thing, as far as public comment, I do not see emails, but the public comment is they're wondering as to who is in charge of the street trees, pruning and replacing.
That is, replacing would be my department. Pruning, any structural clearance or pruning as far as deadwood removal would be the purview of my department. Any utility line clearance would be contracted work through our light and water department.
Okay.
Who does the pruning or the replacing?
We do. Yep, we do.
Replacing, and
So-
who does the pruning?
Pruning is still my department as well.
So both. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So ideally, what I would like to do with the department is I like to limit as many contracted services as possible for the actual forestry work, not just for cost savings, but it's something that I would like to have the oversight and management of it. I feel like if there's costs associated with it or payment associated with it, you may lose some of the actual respect and I suppose attention to detail when it comes to actual trees and pruning. So in our off months from November 15th to April 15th is when we do a substantial amount of pruning. We complete our removals in those periods, but planting is also the responsibility of my department as well.
The other question from this person that, one, I don't know how many, but they said there was on their walk, which is a 4-mile walk or whatever, they commented there was a number of newly planted trees, especially on Main Street, that are either damaged or dead, and they wanted to know what's going on with that. And the other thing was they wanted to know who maintains the drip line or whatever of the trees, because they were commenting that there's people that put, this person's heard me talk about mounding, volcanoing, what?
I was going to say volcanoing.
Yes, and so it's one of those things where I'm not gonna go up there and knock on her and say stop this I don't know if it's been approved, but they were wondering who's the person that goes and says thank you for caring, but that's not good for that tree.
I can outline some of the procedures as well. So Main Street, I believe some of those trees may be contracted replacements. Main Street was a contracted replacement as far as planting within the DOT project. There were a couple trees that my staff planted as well that are going to be covered under Bailey's nursery contract, as far as ones that didn't break dormancy, and we had that early drought last year as well. To hopefully kind of mitigate that, we did purchase 400 water bags that we will be using and filling up throughout the season for early tree care. Early tree care is a very large priority of both myself as well as the department. Unfortunately, Main Street is a very difficult area to have well-maintained new terrace trees as well, based on the amount of salt usage in the wintertime on Main Street, being a state highway. But any trees that are dead or dying that need replaced on Main Street are noted. We just have to be able to put them into our planting schedule for the most part. The actual drip line of the trees are protected and coded by ordinance. The actual enforcement comes down to my department as well. Here's one of my difficulties as far as enforcement versus, or I suppose, ordinance versus enforcement availability is it's very difficult to keep up on the actual enforcement of all the ordinances. We no longer have a neighborhood services officer who would assist in a lot of these duties, so it does come down to just myself or people within my department as well. But the things we are looking for, if there's substantial volcanoing of those trees for the actual root flare, trying to expose that as much as possible, attaching any things to the trees, or private pruning of these trees that may not be up to our standards as well. Those things are enforced as much as possible, but it does cause some of the limitations of time and availability for it.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? If none, let's move to item 8, the new business. And new business has A and B. So A being the discussion recommendations regarding the City Council Resolution 2341A, making the recommendations for the maintenance and use. And B, a discussion regarding the topics and amount of detail needed in meeting minutes. So let's get to A, which discussion recommendations regarding City Council Resolution for the maintenance and preservation of the mill pond. And I think, and Anita, what we're basing a lot of this on is the Strand report from 2018, and Eric has also updated the cost of the projects given the different options. And the other thing I was told by Lisa, that in the proposal, the resolution is that they asked for this report to be done in June of this year, but to my knowledge, she said that has been discussed at the city council and is no longer that the final report has to be done in June, but we do need to have an update report for June for the council, but does not necessarily have to be final.
Parenthetically, it'd be important for you to get access to the city email, just so that, because that's where Madison sends out the one with all these links on here. This was a copy of the agenda that she sends out, so that's the most efficient way to get all this stuff before a meeting.
Yeah, well, she did send me, but I just
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
have,
okay.
yeah, but I just didn't have a chance to go through it.
Now, Anita, do you have a city email yet?
No. I just, when I filled out my paperwork, they asked me for my email. I gave them my Gmail.
Yes.
So I don't know if they'll be establishing a separate one for me, probably. Is that the protocol usually?
I'm still using my Gmail, and because I told them I didn't want to have a separate email.
Yeah.
And I think it was Madison told me that's fine for you to.
Yeah, mine comes to my personal mail,
Yeah.
which is fine. The downside is what Mike has pointed out, and I don't see my whatever. If somebody would send something to the city email, I do not get it. And even though I've asked Dave and others is there a way it can get forwarded, it's been one of those things where Dave's been very generous, so it's time to say, come in and help me. It just doesn't seem to work.
Okay. So when you're saying when it goes to the city email, is there like a general city email, or I guess I'm sorry, it's probably a stupid question, but when you say that, what do you mean? Is there like a general city email that everybody gets, or you're saying that
It goes, it will say A. Martin at
okay.
city,
Yeah, gotcha.
Wisconsin, or such like that.
Okay.
So to remedy that situation, so like if we go to the Lake Mills webpage or Lake Mills Park Board webpage, it lists out everyone, and
Yeah.
like if you click on my name, it brings up an email to my private email address.
Yeah, okay.
If I do it for you, Tim, it does go to the Lake Mills, your Lake Mills address. So I don't know, is that something we just need to go through IT at the city just to have them update the link?
Change that hyperlink.
Yes.
I think mine
Let's see what
goes
yours
to
says.
my Yahoo, but yet I don't believe I get any of those emails you're talking about.
There we go. Yes, you're supposed to go to your Yahoo.
But yet, I didn't
That
get
might
those
be going
when
into
you
your
sent.
spam or something.
I'm pretty good about looking at that, but I'll check again.
Yeah, well, let's double check that. Maybe we can
Yeah.
put that on the agenda item to have that brought up and get it at least standardized.
Yeah. So,
And as
mean,
long as we're getting it, and you know all the drill, Anita, that, quorum and all that, everything comes
yeah,
to you, you don't,
can't reply all and
can't
all that.
reply
Yeah,
all
yeah,
and all
yeah,
that sort
yeah.
of thing, so.
So whichever way is the preference, I can use my Gmail, or if it's better to establish the city email, I'm fine either
Yeah.
way.
I think at least my opinion, the biggest intent is so someone can email us.
Directly, right,
Directly,
yeah.
and then our responsibility is just like we're doing now, bring it to the attention of the board or whomever. but at least there's something that could be documented that read and responded.
Okay, okay. So if they list my normal Gmail and I get something, I wait to bring, this is just more of a procedural thing, but I wait to bring it to the next board meeting, or do I forward a copy? Like, what's the procedure on that?
I can comment as well. I would say if it addresses like an immediate need, like someone notices something within a park, by all means, please forward it to me. I rely very heavily on public contact to assist with things that come up as well. I want to have an open form of communication. So if it's something, I would say use your discretion for the most part.
Okay.
If it's like an ongoing future issue or a currently discussed issue, kind of table it for the next meeting.
Okay.
But if it's something as far as just a general comment, please forward it to me, because by all means, maybe it's something we didn't notice, and that one comment will kind of direct us a little bit more.
Okay,
So,
okay, thank you.
Yes, I think it's good, counsel. And I'm just talking about me. I'll contact Dan Drescher directly.
Just ask if
Just
there's
ask him what's
an
going on and
issue.
what the next process is. I think that's totally
Yeah,
fine. It's
okay.
Eric says, use your discretion. But the biggest thing is, we want to be transparent.
Yes.
And we want to be responsive. But we also want to have people have a chance to hear a comment going forward, because that might drive other comments, or that might be something that people heard and answered might be good enough for them.
Okay,
Would you agree, everyone, on that process?
thank you.
Yep.
Sure.
So I don't know how you want to move forward with the discussion recommendation. I asked, and this was also attached to the emails, predates me having any awareness of Lake Mills Mill Pond. But that is something that a lot of people that are in Lake Mills remember quite like yesterday, I'm gonna guess. And so I think that's maybe some of the image of access and usability and such are, and I apologize, Eric, who gave you these?
So this is a resident named Ann Buchanan on West Lake Street. She has provided me with substantial amounts of historical documents and photos. Her family goes back quite a ways as far as owning Mill Pond frontage property. Now the nice thing is I can go back through historical aerials, past surveys. I have surveys that go back to the 1800s for the most part. But what I'm currently missing, or what I was missing, is boots on the ground first person photos. What does this actually look like, or what did it look like? So she's provided quite a bit of personal photos from her collection. And I will say, I know she listens to these meetings, and I very much would like to thank her for those resources.
That's Ann
Ann Buchanan.
Buchanan, the usual spelling, Chanon.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is actually how she found out that we were requesting some of these documents and photos, as she listened to our meeting. So I very much appreciate these and glad they can be viewed. And I think seeing the actual waterway itself, or the surface water, is kind of a viewpoint that we were missing previously to some of our data. So hopefully it helps.
I thought the pictures were really helpful to get a visual,
Well, especially with the one to the boathouses that go off the where the fire station is, along the cattails there.
Yeah.
I apologize, Eric, and I meant to label these Exhibit A and B, because
Yep.
Spring 1978 one, which is which? Is that the one that has the picture of the boathouse?
Yep, so
on
there
the north
actually,
side also?
Yep, there are 2 pages of photos from 1978. You can kind of see the ones with tulips in the foreground
Yes.
are from 1978. There are 2 photos from 1977, which are sunset photos, and then
But
the ones.
just stay with the first one we have on it from 78 is this, that'd be A, 78A.
Yes.
And then this one with the shoreline and all that, that'd be 78B. All
Yep.
right.
And to put it in perspective as well, some of these photos are taken approximately from the Veterans Lane area, and some of them are taken from the West Lake Street shoreline. The nice
was
thing is
wondering
in a
about that.
lot of these photos, you can actually see the Ferry Street or Ferry Drive Bridge, which should hopefully provide some placement of where these photos were taken and provide
Yes.
a bit of perspective. So if you look closely, you can normally see that concrete culvert bridge on Ferry Drive.
Oh, yeah.
And I have color versions as well if you would like, Mike. But
Well, I guess we should probably have links to these in the minutes, and I'll...
They're in the agenda.
Right, so I'll just see how I can get that attached to the minutes, but I'll work with Madison if I need to on that.
So you can get all these things just on the Lake Mills Park Board website, on the agenda.
Yeah,
There's links to everything.
so that's what it's, okay, good.
Yeah, and that's why I just had the context. I didn't need to do color with my own printer, so. But yeah, these are very helpful. It gives an idea of, again, if we're talking about goals, uses, maintenance, preservation, and such. What is not in the documentation that I've seen by the city is when were these things removed?
that I'm not quite sure. I was trying to find, I believe it's approximately early 80s, so shortly after these photos were taken.
And yeah, so I didn't see that. If others have, please share. And what was the reasoning for the removal?
Just dilapidation for the most part, I believe.
So these were owned by the city, the ones that are on the south side by the
South side, okay, yep.
There were city-owned boathouses. I don't know exactly what that lease structure looked like, what they were rented for, how long they were rented for, but there was boathouses on city-owned property. That I can say.
Okay. And I just think for documentation, it'd be interesting to see, here's what they had, because they're talking about preservation. Well, you didn't preserve these. And it'd be kind of interesting what the reasoning was, and because I'm going to guess there was some comment as to when these were going out.
Question is, so here, if we're looking at this one, and that's the south side of the mill pond.
Yes.
How do they get out there? Because behind there, I mean, if here's the fire station, that's all marsh and cattails back there. So was there must have been a dock or something laid
Not
out
behind,
there.
it was kind of a pull in, pull out. I believe the dock actually ran through the boathouses.
So there was a
themselves
dock
for the
that,
most part.
okay. the other
Yep,
half.
so if you can
Okay.
actually, to place this, I suppose, photo placement as well, the photo that you were referencing, Mike, with the shed in the foreground.
Yeah.
There's a shed on the shoreline and then there's boathouses behind it.
Right.
That shed is still visible. It's still on the mill pond. Unfortunately, the shed is approximately half underwater right now, but that shed is there. It exists.
It's
and
right
you
by,
can
it's
see
right
it.
by the Jensen
Yep.
plumbing.
So you'd be looking probably from South Lake Street there.
If you were on Veterans Lane where the Mill Pond boat launch is, looking at the Mill Pond towards the Ferry Drive
Yeah.
Bridge, this boathouse, this privately owned one, would be on your right-hand side of the shoreline.
Yeah.
These boathouses, this chain of boathouses, would be on your left where the edge of the marsh is.
Right, okay.
So that's the fire station right there.
Oh.
No, that's the old fire station, but it's the same location.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Same location, same parcel.
Yeah. But it is,
okay.
for context, but yes, that is still there, but it's slowly disintegrating.
It's Atlantis.
Yeah, and surrounded by.
So this is going to the dam.
Yellow
through
iris.
here.
Yep.
Dam goes over
That
here.
would be kind of
Okay.
So, and then, so this goes back to ours, just more knowledge about the city goals for the uses and maintenance. One is we want to maintain what we've got. No one has talked about replacing boathouses or piers to my knowledge.
It was proposed as far as the installation of those boat lifts as well, though. So that was proposed in the feasibility study.
Yes, by the veterans.
Yep, Veterans
Yes,
Lane. But
yeah.
as far as
But not anything like this.
No.
So, just wanna, I feel like for myself, I need to go back and look at what exactly the city council resolution
I can
asked
pass
of
it
us.
here as well. Okay.
I do have it somewhere, but it looks
You
like
got
I
one,
may have lost it. There we go. You can give it to other folks. I don't know if you have a copy of this. But so I think the kind of like the main thing is that section 1 is the city council hereby assigns the Parks Board to review the potential short-term and long-term maintenance needs of the mill pond that facilitates this resource's best and highest use to meet the needs of the community. So I think one of the big things is short-term and long-term. This report from 2018 identified a lot of different things. But I guess what we have, I hate to just reference a bunch of different documents. We have the OPCC, the cost document.
This one right here
Yep.
of 11/30/2023.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I looked at this and I think we can eliminate, what do they have? 6 options. I think we can eliminate 3 of them because the channel has already been dredged. That's done. So I guess I took away the channel option, the channel and mill pond, and channel and 50-foot channel, because those options, I guess, they include the channel dredging that's already done. So that would leave us with the mill pond, in the mill pond 50-foot channel, and then there's also at the bottom the Ferry Drive bridge thing. I guess I'm looking at the Ferry Drive bridge option as maybe a longer term goal rather than what we're going to do with the mill pond as a short term goal, but wanted to see what other people on the board thought about kind of categorizing in accordance with the city council resolution, the different options.
So let's take those in turn. Let's go back to McCrae's comment. So, and would Mike, you, me, and McCrae on this one. So we're looking at, would we agree with McCrae's assessment that channel itself is off because it's done?
Yep.
Correct? And now mill pond, that's still open.
Yep.
We're looking at channel and mill pond, and what did you say about that?
I just took it off because
That mill pond will take care of that because the channel's already done, all right? And then mill pond, 50-foot channel, that's still
on the table.
on the discussion. Channel and 50-foot channel, I need some clarity on that one. Is
I
that
can
just gonna go
clarify.
straight to the boat launch?
Yep, so the 50-foot channel is specifically designated separate from the channel. A 50-foot channel would be a 50-foot wide section from approximately the boat launch on Veterans Lane through the Mill Pond Channel out to Rock Lake. And the reason we could potentially move that or remove it is the channel's already done, so it's a line item that we can scratch.
Right. But is the channel actually, the 50-foot channel that's 50 feet wide,
The entire
the
length.
entire
of the-
length?
Yep.
And that would go at the issue that the person that sent the email to us about the piers going all the way out to get to that 50-foot wide channel.
Yep. So if you reference the OPCC, which is that probable construction cost, where it lists scenario, kind of begins our listing of line items.
Yes.
You can basically scratch the first option, which is channel,
Yes,
leave the second, which is mill pond.
yes,
Scratch the third, which is channel and mill pond.
yes,
Leave the fourth, mill pond 50-foot channel.
yes,
Scratch the fifth, which is channel and the 50-foot channel.
yes.
And just so I'm clear, and maybe Anita as well, so there's the 2 we're leaving, not counting Ferry Drive. When it says mill pond, that means every place where there's water.
All surface water.
And
yes.
then where it says 50-foot channel, it's a 50-foot channel from the bridge basically to the fire station.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Roughly, yes.
So are we all kind of in agreement that that's?
Yep.
And I guess the third option too is do nothing, and I guess the cost would be $0 associated with do nothing with the mill pond.
And this, the Ferry Drive, as I recall, that's part of the Ferry Drive project. That's going to be Public Works and Street, and that's
It
down
would
the
be,
road.
but it would also be under the purview of the Parks Board because it was listed as a potential option within the feasibility
But
study.
that's clearly in the future.
So
It's at your discretion for recommendation.
I see that item as well as the Ferry Drive Bridge reconstruction and the installation of docks as a long-term item, because either way, I guess for the main goal of being able to, if that is the goal, to have more recreational usage of the mill pond and allow larger boats, the mill pond would have to be dredged first in order to utilize those other
Anyway.
things. So yeah, how do other Parks Board members feel about categorizing the different options into the short term and the long term as such?
I think the categorization is a great idea. I'm going to start with the Ferry Drive full report in that I agree that that would be more long-term, because my recollection is that because it would entail raising the bridge and raising or changing the culvert and a number of other things, it was going to be something that they would pursue, maybe a grant from the state of Wisconsin, and also try to get some sort of more detail as it's making it more usable for the fireboat from the fire department.
Yep. So if I could clarify, if you are talking as a means of public safety regarding the access of the fire department's watercraft to the lake, the Ferry Drive culvert being raised is a requirement for that. So I just want to make sure that that's realized.
Yeah. Now, is that in that cost where it says option A, option B, and then the bridge being the 520,000 some?
Yes.
And that would be the culvert, and the bridge would be, that would be both of them? And the, when they
I
say
would have
bridge,
to look, so when it references option A and option B in the bridge, see 57, page 57 of the actual feasibility study for clarification.
Okay.
But from my understanding, the actual bridge itself, or basically the entire raising of that structure, would be that $520,000.
okay. Now, McCray has it in front of him.
Yeah, so option A. Sorry, there's a couple things I gotta read here. Option A does not look like it includes removal and replacement of the bridge. I'm not exactly sure.
Well, I'm just looking at the price points. It can't be doing much. 'Cause
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 72,000
What?
or something, right?
So it looks like option, okay, so, yeah, okay, option A, so this item should maybe be clarified a little bit.
Yes.
Option A is floating dock, 6 to 8 parking spots, so that would be, they have it in a drawing here, that would be the floating docks over kind of by the fire department behind the Legion. I believe that was recommended in the Strand report. And then includes clearing, grubbing, sidewalk, railing, bridge sidewalk over fish hatchery, intake, and then some just public works.
If
type
you would
things.
like a photo as well, see the previous page, page 56, actually has an overlay of
There
what
we go.
option A and option B are.
Okay. So this,
That's A,
yeah, option A.
which is where the old ones were. Where
No,
those
not
old
exactly.
boathouses were.
Yes,
sorted.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. That's where that boardwalk goes, yes.
Okay, yeah, so option A, option B. So option A and option B actually have nothing to do with the bridge.
Well, yeah, that's why I think it's a little bit confusing, because it talks about Ferry Drive, which takes you
Yeah.
right over to the bridge.
Yeah.
But actually, option A is more dock by the fire station, and option B is dock by the American Legion.
Yep.
Correct.
So I wonder if we, Mike, in the notes, we might want to make a note of that.
Yep.
And that's on the options or probable construction costs.
Yep.
And with that clarification and those prices and usability, I would think that would be something we'd want to keep on the table for discussion, to say those would be good options to consider, in that there's access with those docks, both just for people getting in and out and fishing, but also kayakers, even if we don't make the bridge high enough to get pontoons and such in.
But are we still talking about it being long-term, or are we talking about being?
No, that's what I'm saying, it's a discussion. I think right now, what's the long-term would be the actual bridge changing,
I can agree with that.
which would mean access to the downtown, which would get at the issues of commerce and more usability for everybody involved. But again, that's Ferry Drive Bridge, and I think we want to make sure that that's clear. And option A is, for lack of a better term, south dock. Option B is north dock. And then the bridge is the whole infrastructure access.
I do absolutely agree as far as seeing potential options. Now, I will say, with my department, one of my goals as well is improving the amount of public non-motorized watercraft access. If there are going to be docks installed in the mill pond, I would absolutely like to pursue publicly accessible kayak and canoe launches. So if there is going to be permanent structures installed in the mill pond, that's definitely something I would like to pursue, not just for large boats docking, but definitely so you can roll up with a kayak and launch easily.
The place I like, and I have it, it's an image going back to the option A and or B, is similar to the one they have down in Jefferson by the bridge.
Exactly what I was thinking.
And they do have the kayak access, and they do have other, you can pull up and have access there.
Can I ask a question though? I mean, right now, can you not park down by the fire station, carry or whatever your
You can,
kayak,
yes.
and
Yep.
launch it from the current dock? So what are we adding with this?
If I may speak, I'm a very avid kayaker myself, as well as public access points. The having to carry your watercraft and launch it from, I suppose, a somewhat non-stable environment, basically a standard boat launch pier, is somewhat difficult, especially for someone if they may be older or younger too.
What'd you look at me for?
I'm not
One of the goals here is increasing the amount of ease of launching absolutely increases the amount of outreach and accessibility that people have to that recreation option. There are specific purpose-built launching piers designed for kayaks. They're much more stable, they're easier to access. Of course, you would still have to unload your kayak near that area, but I think having a dedicated kayak access pier would drastically improve the ease of access. So
then-
you could still park, or you could still unload your kayak or watercraft nearest to the water, go about parking, and then put your boat in the water. But having purpose-built piers would definitely be ease of access improvement.
So do you see a need then for this A or B to include motorized docking?
Absolutely could be if
But you have that now, don't you? You back up, which you have to do anyway.
we do not allow mooring. There is no long-term mooring
that's
allowed
right,
in the
that's right.
boats.
Okay.
The actual piers that are at Veterans Lane are specifically for the purpose of launching and retrieving your watercraft. There's no availability to moor, store, or unboard your boat for the most part.
And the goal of having more motorboats there is,
Access to downtown businesses.
so these would be not the larger boats though, because those are, those depend upon. getting them
But still,
towed.
people in that
Smaller
size boat would
Could go
still
downtown,
use it,
okay.
and as Eric and others have brought up, it's just nice to be able to have a place you can stop, store, and come back. And then you can also access it coming from the Rock Lake proper too, which would become to have a bite to eat or to get bait at the gas station and such. So all that is part of this. And the other thing about that, I think I want to be very clear, is that there's no mooring right now. And even if you
Right.
bring in kayaks or canoes, technically you cannot put those anywhere along the shore and then leave.
You are correct.
And I think that's an important consideration when it comes to use for those.
So these then might be shifted, A and B would be into the near term.
I'm comfortable with including that in the short term.
Yes, I would strongly concur with that.
One of the things that I may mention as well is that was kind of my area of focus when I was with the DNR, as well as improving non-motorized watercraft access. As a user myself, as well as a developer in some of these aspects, there's a park, Lions Park in Marshall. It's from the Lions Club. They installed a very economical pier that's definitely user-friendly. It both combines the opportunity for people to be on kind of a fishing pier, so that you can both fish from the pier as well as launch a kayak. The example that they have in Marshall at that park is, for my opinion, one of the more user-friendly and accessible options in kind of this county area for the most part is the one in Marshall.
Yeah, and that is a nice one at Marshall.
Are you familiar with it?
Oh, yes, yep.
Maybe we're getting too much into the weeds, but if we're talking with that, would it make sense to have the south side or north side, one side be fishing pier non-motorized and the other side be motorized? Or is that not necessary?
You could actually make that description or distinction.
If that's our recommendation, that certainly could be in there, and I look at in the bigger scheme of things, even if we don't get this done till 2025, option A, and when they say A, to your knowledge, Eric, or anybody else, was that including, as you're describing, as far as non-motorized access at $71,000 for the docking piers?
I'm not quite sure, honestly, if it was even to that point of delineation.
Okay.
It would absolutely require, I think, further research to see what products cost. Obviously, the study was done in 2018.
Right.
I would like to see what the updated product cost would be. Now, this is another thing to where I would like to use my discretion if I could. One of my goals as well within the department is to distinctly move away the traveling of motorized access versus non-motorized. I would like to keep them as separated as possible just for the sake of safety. If there's an area to put in a kayak or non-motorized watercraft, I would like to kind of have a distinct area to launch a kayak and have a distinct area for motorized watercraft. Like I said, just kind of for the sake of safety. I do try to do that as much as possible at Sandy Beach, just based on how crazy things can get when people are operating motorized watercraft versus a paddle operator. But that would just kind of be my preference if we could continue talking about that distinction.
Well, I think that's fine. A couple of things with that. If you want to have where stand-up paddleboard or kayak or some non-motorized, their draft, the amount of water they're going down is very minimal. I mean, less than a foot, and maybe a foot and a half if you need to paddle a little bit. So I'm thinking that would force the motorboats to stay away from them. You know, so if you had a line from, and I'm just talking out loud here, if we were to have that dock on the south side of the pier, and then it would be that would kind of delineate it right away that this is for hand.
And that's absolutely valid, and there have been circumstances as well of piers that I've seen and installed that have a designated area of a long, potentially like 40 or 50 foot pier that is a launching pier, motorboat access pier, but on the side there's a kayak offshoot or access area as well.
Yeah. So just something like that would be, and then the same thing, so that would be maybe less needed to be dredged, wherever that was. And then where you have the channel and then the rest of the open water would be your depth to be standard, would be for the 4 feet or whatever our different options were. Because if I remember right, it was 2 feet, 3 feet, and 4 feet or something like that?
3 feet, 4 feet, and then I think it said everything, which I think was down to parent material.
But I did find the documentation as well when we did the dredging project in the channel. 4 feet is kind of the standard to be considered navigable for motorboat access.
Yes.
Yeah, speaking in support of that, two things. I see at Bartles Beach, where there's a de facto launch site. People are launching kayaks there all the time, paddleboards, and then motorboats are coming up there all the time, and it is not a good thing, and I've seen some near misses with that. Second thing is when RLIA, I think 2 summers ago, did a survey of watercraft usage, I think it was on the 4th of July or Memorial Day weekend, I forget which, and compared it to previous years, the real jump was in non-motorized vessels. That's where the growth is.
And it's absolutely increasing the amount of accessibility to people. Having cheaper watercraft available, they keep getting exponentially cheaper. Having the entry-level costs associated with it increase the amount of user access to it. So non-motorized watercraft is absolutely an up-and-coming recreation source. And
Less impact on the lake as well.
yeah, and I don't see that ever going down. I see it continuously improving. And right now we don't have a designated kayak canoe access, basically, for the most part. There are products made specifically for the ease of kayak and canoe access. We don't have any within the city. We have piers that are able to be, or launch sites that are able to be used for that, but not a purpose-built or installed fixture for it.
So thank you for that. What I would, am going to back up a little bit here, in that, who owns this document, Eric?
City of Lake Mills.
So who can adjust the detail of it?
We would be able to. That's a document that was created by us with contract engineers. So we have Dwayne Vandermouse, who's basically a contract engineer for the city, separate from Strand. He is not associated with Strand. He is basically our liaison resource for the city. So this is created by both him and myself. So this is a serviceable document that by all means we can adjust. Now I will say an OPCC, opinion of probable construction costs. What was added onto here and what was changed was our annual multipliers. Of course, COVID was taken into consideration for this. That drastically changes the prices, but we've not gone into the detail to search specific products, installation costs, or anything like that for it. So there's far more depth that we could go into this document, but it would require more research.
So if that's possible, what I would say is we can fine tune this. So we say mill pond, and mill pond would be the whole thing, just to 4 feet. That's the mill pond.
I would say designate the depth, though.
Yep,
You
because
would
there's
have to
three
designate
options
that.
on
Right,
there.
I'd say that
all
from,
is the bedrock.
It's
what we would- as
it's
far
all
as they can
sediment
go.
is what it says.
Okay.
yes, but I think if we're going to go with standard to the 4 feet, because that's
Is
the
that
channel.
82403, is that 4 feet? So this is 4.
825 is 3 feet, and then yes, 824 is 4 feet, and that is
Okay.
compared to the summertime low water
Okay.
level.
For instance, the summertime
Yeah.
low water level, or at least held water levels, I believe is 827.25. I can confirm that. But we have seen within the past recent years to where that lake level has went below the water level order required as well.
So that's the thing too, is we can put on there 3 feet, 4
Yeah,
feet.
that would make it a lot
And
easier.
Okay.
Just for someone looking at that, they know what
Yeah,
we're
thank you.
speaking of. And then going down to the mill pond, 50-foot channel, same thing. We're going to go with the channel is going to be just basically 50 feet from there to there. The rest of the mill pond just stays. That's whatever sediment, whatever depth is what it is.
There is an actual overlay of that option as well. I can search to see what page that is here, but I believe there was a map or an aerial photo that had a potential 50-foot channel
Right,
in it.
right. But I think that's what we're talking about there. The 50-foot channel, 4 feet deep, is that option,
You're correct.
all right? And then the third option is Ferry Drive, but we're talking the bridge and all the infrastructure of the bridge.
Yes.
And then, so option A and B
Yeah, it's misleading.
are actually going to be moved up to, either subset up to the mill pond or subset of mill pond 50-foot channel.
Yeah, I agree, we should take that away from Ferry Drive.
Is that, am I clear in my understanding
Yes.
of
Yep,
that?
You're correct.
So is that something we could note and then have that updated on the,
Yes, and what I'll do, or at least what I'd like to do at that point, let me make some edits or have some edits changed within a draft. I'd like to see if I can send it to draft form before we add it to a final report within the next agenda. Just want to make sure it covers all the bases before we publish it.
yes, no, I think that's wise, but I just think that the bridge and whatever else is part of that bridge deal
Yep.
should be a separate item.
Okay. I would like to keep the other scratched items on there for the most part because it may be referenced, but if you would like an edited document, I can remove those sections that you would no longer like to continue discussing is fine too. It's kind of your discretion how you'd like to edit this document.
I guess if we're not considering them, I would prefer them not.
Yeah, it
not
just
on
gets
the-
confusing, I
Yep.
think.
Agreed.
A question, if I could just back up, I think you mentioned, okay, so we've got the pricing, I think you mentioned the multipliers up here. That's what those are, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so is that, could you just repeat, is that based on inflation, or what are those? Where were those
Inflation
derived?
costs, potential construction costs, industry standards for the most part.
Okay.
This is kind of reflecting the general percentage increases throughout the past couple annual years as far as similar work.
Okay. Do you think they're high enough?
Well, I think Anita, if I'm not I think the 1.55 was because of the COVID jump.
Yes. Well, what happened too is we had our 2018 prices in this feasibility study. There was no price fluctuation or adjustments from 2018 until 2023 when we made this document that equated to approximately 1.55. But
Okay.
that did take into account the COVID costs, construction.
Okay.
et cetera.
So that,
Okay.
It is-
that's basically
Okay. Okay, because those other 0.03 is sort of low.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
you're
I'm
you're
on-
basically seeing like a 5-year jump from
Yes.
2018 to 2023.
Okay.
And then a potential or approximate 0.03 annual increase.
Okay, okay.
I
And
think
then
these
very
are,
much approximate for the most part.
yeah, I think these are a little bit better. Like, I mean, obviously these are just, predictions, but I
Yes.
think the benefit of this document is comparing
Yep.
the different options rather than the numbers themselves.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Well, I'm always looking at what the bottom line cost would be. So, okay.
I'm not sure at what point we want to start actually diving into, discussing which options we support. Are we at that point now, or are we not ready to start having that conversation?
I think we are, I think that's one of our goals is to, and
Okay.
going to Anita's comment, is that you look at the full mill pond, you're looking at, or should I be going at which one should I be going at? The 824.03, is that the 4 feet?
Yeah, that's.
Yes, that's 4 feet.
All right, so we're looking at 3 million plus.
Can I, just for a break for a moment?
Yeah.
Do we need to stop this?
Oh, we can. I would say I think if you call a potential break or a 5-minute break, I think you have to have a motion.
I'll motion for a break.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
All right, so should I just,
Sure.
all right.
I won't argue with that.
No.
Oh goodness. Also,
Anita, do you feel comfortable discussing this?
That's
Even though you don't have all the background, what's that? That's your farm?
That's the gristmill. I don't know why I never brought that up in our historical meetings, but that's a painting of the gristmill.
So which side is which on this?
Oh, good question.
I would say west is to the right.
This is west side. So this would be where the Legion Hall is.
Okay.
This would be coming towards us. So that, yeah, this would be where the Legion Hall is.
So what to the left is underneath the road and underneath the
Yep.
buildings.
Yep. I don't know why, I've looked at that painting, I see it almost every day and I don't know.
Do you
why.
have a plaque underneath it that says what it is?
I can get one. Grab some water.
So after all discussion, are you
I
thinking about staying on the board?
I am, but I guess right at this point, I'm more still absorbing. I think you all have been on this for a while. You looked at it. You have a better understanding of it. So I think I'd mostly like to just listen to what's being said right now, and then if there's any question that just really pops out to me to ask now.
I think
You know what I'm
that's-
saying? Because
yes.
otherwise, first of all, I'm behind the 8 ball, and secondly, I'm going to be redundant if I start asking a bunch of questions that you guys have already covered. But, listening to what you're all saying is being really helpful for me.
Yes, and the other thing a factor that's gonna come in is that we have a new person,
Yes.
potentially liaison, that either, if it's Steve Fields, he'll have some knowledge of this, because he's
Yes.
been on this. If it's
Hasn't Michelle also?
Michelle, if it's
Yeah.
Michelle, she might have some.
Yeah.
If it's Mary,
None.
she'll
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
well, unless,
Well,
she's quite well-read.
Yeah,
in
and
it.
she's got more of an engineering background.
Right,
too,
so all that, but I think whoever it is, they're gonna wanna also, I think, be privy to some of the discussion
Yeah.
before we
That's a good point.
take it to the,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I would like to really listen and hear what y'all have
Okay.
to say, because what you're saying makes sense, but I'd also like to see the input that the resident, you kind of shared some of that, but the input from the residents, and then what was said before too.
I think it's safe to say all the residents are in favor of maximum dredging,
With
All
one
the-
exception.
except for the one guy. who
is
says
that
it costs
Foster?
too
Who
much.
was the one that was,
No, that
Todd
was
Temperley.
Todd. Epperly.
Todd, that's right,
Temperley.
that's right.
Temperley
Otherwise,
wanted
everybody
a
we've spoken to.
referendum or something.
Yep.
Right.
Yes, yeah, you
Okay.
were
Which
here for
that's
that meeting.
outside of our,
Jurisdiction.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Then you
So-
just gotta call it back to order, and it's all you.
So no one goes that dog.
I didn't.
You want to?
Are you ready?
Microphone.
What did you say, Mom? Put it over here?
Don't be intimidating the jurors here. All right. All right, we are back in session. When we left, we were at a point of discussing options and next steps. And McCray, would you like to continue on with your?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to jump into, starting what things we support, which options we support, I'll be the first to take the leap if we're at that point.
But hadn't you said you wanted to wait until we got our city council rep on, or no? I'm happy to do it now too.
You
but
can
I just-
continue the conversation for sure.
Right, I
This
don't.
isn't the end of it. This
Right,
is the start of it.
I just think we should start it so
Start
we
it,
can.
good point.
Well, just be, my point was to say they're gonna wanna get up to speed and have our rationale, but I think if we have our rationale and our recommendations, it gives them a starting point.
Yep.
So please, McCray.
All right, I support, and obviously there's multiple options in it, but largely due to the overwhelming public support for a dredging of the full mill pond, that is the option that I am most likely to support at this point. In discussion with that, with a note on the cost, there's
I'm sorry, to the 4 feet or 3 feet? Just 4
so
feet.
on that's where I'm getting
Oh,
to
sorry, okay.
right now. There's the 3 options listed for dredging the full mill pond: the 3 feet, the 4 feet, and the all. If we look at the lowest cost, which would be to 3 feet, is not really much more than dredging all of the 50-foot channel. I'm just looking at all the 2026 numbers, just because it's furthest to the right.
Okay.
For the 50-foot channel, to dredge all is just over 1 million, and to do 3 feet for the mill pond would get you to 1.3 million, or about 1.4 million. And I look at dredging just the channel would provide access for the public, whether that could be kayaks. I guess with that option, it would not include the option A and option B of the mooring docks and the kayak launch, because I don't think there would be room for those. But there could be some flexibility there. But that I kind of want to highlight the concern of, if we just do the 50-foot channel, there's a potential for landowners or property owners' docks extending much further into the mill pond, and kind of taking over that area. Other, I guess, pros for it, or for some form of a full dredging of the mill pond, as Eric was pointing out, better recreational access, especially people being able to fish from the shore. As I noticed before, it seems like that has been dropping off in the the short time period that I've been here. And then also just another benefit, it would be to, select few people, but better access to the mill pond property owners. I think, as Andy has noted, as well as the other mill pond owners, that their access has significantly decreased, and they have concerns that they, will not be able to use their property in the way that it had been used historically as far as boat access. And so I guess as far as the three different options, as far as a mill pond, I guess I don't really have a strong opinion yet as far as which one would be best. The prices vary a lot, I guess fourfold pretty much. I think, dredging all sediment includes a lot of costs. That's almost $7 million, which I think that is a large cost for a community of our size just for a mill pond project. I think, and I guess I don't know if we'll ever get the answer. I'm not sure how much longer if we dredge to 4 feet rather than 3 feet. How much more time will that buy us? I don't think we will ever know. I think it's safe to assume at least a little bit more time it will buy us if we would dredge to 4 feet compared to 3 feet. But just based on additional depth. But like I said, we don't know the answer to that.
It would certainly give you a buffer, though, for lower water levels.
Yep. So those are my thoughts.
Well, and also it would match what is, the standardization about the 4 feet, what's in the channel, what's the recommendation for access. Then for future, if we do decide to change the bridge and make it more access, then it's another thing where you're not been there and it's done. And it's future options are there.
Good point. It doesn't make much sense to dig real deep in the mill pond and then you can't get that deep into the channel. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think it should be,
That's a good point.
it should be the same. The other thing, to my knowledge, from what we've heard from DNR and Jefferson County people, that for water health, the 4 feet is a good thing because you'll still get weed cover, but you also get some cooling effects. It won't heat up as much in the shallows and such and all that. So I think I would also agree that would be where we could lean as far as the dredging of the entire thing. Gives you a lot more options and less expense in the future. I do have a question, and it might be a complete aside, Eric, in that right now we're talking about dredging. We're talking surface and below for the dredging. We're not talking about going a little bit further into the property owners to get rid of the weeds, the iris, or any of that kind of a thing.
This wouldn't be altering any shorelines at all whatsoever. Right. No. This is basically, if you could compare trees, this is basically, if the surface water is the top of your tree canopy, going straight down would be your drip line.
Okay. I think that's something that property owners may be a little concerned that we're going to alter their shoreline.
Yeah, shoreline alteration, absolutely not now. This would be an option to pursue as well. Potentially, there's an option to do invasives, clearing or grubbing or anything like that within it as well within this project. If we're just referencing the actual feasibility options that were listed, that does not alter any shorelines.
Okay. But with that comment though, just for future and invasives, if we can get some sort of idea what it would cost, if they're already going to have equipment there and doing stuff, it might be to our advantage to get rid of those weeds mechanically, and then redo and save you a lot of time and that. But I know it's a separate thing, but I think we at least should consider that.
Yep. So where this helps me as well, just kind of using my resources and staff time and everything else, it would be a substantial cost and just my time as well to investigate or further investigate all of these available options. Now, if you limit what you're doing now, kind of discussing which ones you may prefer, that kind of streamlines me where I'm going to be putting my resources as far as researching or engineering resources. Like I said, these cost estimates are very rough and rudimentary. If you have a narrowed focus, like you're suggesting a potential 4 feet dredging of the entire mill pond, we can do a little bit more cost analysis, a real life cost analysis of it, and see what those mobilization costs would be. I know depending on how much dredging would be happening does delineate what kind of dredging you're doing. Are you doing mechanical dredging versus vacuum dredging is one thing that I've seen as well, which would of course affect the cost. But if, like I said, this greatly aids me and my resources as well to figure out what more or further research I'm going to be doing for it.
Mike?
Excuse me.
I don't think I have a lot to add. There's good points. Right now, I would be leaning, subject, of course, to additional information. I think the 4 foot of the whole mill pond seems to be the way to go for all the regions enumerated.
Yeah, because then we can add the docks. We're ready if the bridge gets altered, and it gives us long-term what's the word I want, but use, thank you, and in health, and not going back and say, gosh, we should have done that.
Yeah. Well, the future will will tell.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one of the absolute variables here as well is how long will this last? I know maintenance was addressed within this resolution as well, which is something I would like to continue addressing. I don't want the mill pond to get to the point to where it's not navigable, the access is shut off or being severely limited. I think the cost would be less, in my opinion, if it's maintained and dredged potentially more frequently than 50 years, 60, we don't know really, or how long is that going to last? Is improved access going to potentially limit the need for as much dredging if there is motorboat access in there? I'm not quite sure, but there is those potential variables.
Well, Patricia did say that watercraft usage, motorboats from the pier, will tend to keep,
Yes.
I forget which of the vegetable stuff down.
Well,
Yep, but it's a variable. We don't know exactly to
Exactly.
what extent until it's actually shown.
That's true.
Right. Now, a couple of things is that the few times that I would go, like a friend of mine used to live on the mill pond, and to go there, and if you go that way, you'd have to put your tiller up and get it, but you were still moving sediment. And I'm thinking over the years, and the amount of people going back and forth, if you just have a 50-foot channel, every time you go from that channel to that lower part, that is going to push it into the channel. So you're just added sand to throw into sediment to throw into that channel and fill it in. So I think that's another reason why you want it uniform to be 4 feet, that you're not having that issue.
If I may, I do try to limit my opinion, at least for the most part, but if I'm the parks director and I like to have as many opportunities or recreation opportunities available, dredging the whole thing would also provide the benefit of additional shoreline fishing access. If you were to just do a 50-foot channel, that's a recreation opportunity you're not necessarily improving. If you do the entire surface water area, perhaps on Veterans Lane or the Legion Pier, or even on Bartles Beach as well, the shoreline that we own on Bartles Beach, if that's dredged, the 50-foot channel wouldn't necessarily aid in that as far as deeper water for shoreline fishing, to whereas the entirety of it would also be another improved recreation opportunity.
And I think all those things are factors, and it also gets away from minimizing or mitigating conflict. Because if you have any of the watercraft coming in, if they know that any place they go in that mill pond, they're safe, you aren't going to have an issue of somebody coming in. And again, I'm going future. If they were to change it, some boat come in or some pontoon coming in there, they could go around with somebody fishing there. Versus if someone's fishing in that channel, they have the right to be there. Now you've already created a conflict.
That's actually very valid.
So I think that's another reason for having the entire mill pond dredged.
So if I may, one of the things, or at least some of the things that I'll have to prepare, do research for prior to the May meeting, would be to get more adequate or accurate cost estimates as far as specifically dredging to the 4-foot depth for the entirety of the mill pond. Is that safe to assume?
Yes, with your experience and anybody else's experience here as engineers and
I am not an engineer.
I'm pushing
back. People have
I
done
will
this thing.
waive my right to that claim.
Where I'm looking at costs, just right now, I'm looking at the cost from 2026 is where I'm judging my amounts, because I think that's more realistic. I'd rather go high than to go low.
Yep.
But so I'm thinking that if we look at the 2026 amount for the 4 feet, you're looking at about 3,100,000. But that gives us all the options going forward. So
Our
make one more comment.
nope. I just wanted to gauge others' thoughts about. I guess my concerns with the option of removing all sediment is that we're more than doubling the cost. I just wanted, before we're giving or asking Eric to get cost estimates, so we don't want to include any other options. Do all of us, are we all in agreement we do not want to include the all sediment removal option?
I agree, we do not want the all.
Agreed.
Okay.
We're looking at the 4 feet for standard, matching the channel and just not navigation issues.
Okay.
So
Good
basically,
point.
we're sticking with the 4-foot one.
Yes. Just as an aside, when we've had presenters that have property on the mill pond and they talk about their taxes, I did a little bit of research on that, and my understanding of their taxes are basically the same as mine. They are not getting taxed like they were on the main lake. So you can double check that, but it isn't like they're not paying a premium tax for being on the lake like you might be here.
I did look at that with Zillow, and
Okay.
the city assessed value is marginally different if you're on that side of Lake Street versus on the Mill Pond side. Again, they're not the same properties, but it was a marginal difference. Whereas where I am compared to some at the end of the block, it's about 4 or 5-fold difference, which is appropriate. But I'm just saying exactly right. And the value of the house on the market is higher, but the assessed value, it doesn't
Right.
reflect
So
that.
when they were getting these comments about they're not getting their use for their taxes, it's like, well, you're not being taxed yet quite the way you might now, that if we really make it a 4 foot,
Maybe it'll go up.
4 foot and accessible. So be careful what you wish for. I just put it as an aside that like when they get that, it isn't considered quote unquote lake property yet, but it is water access.
I do have one more thing. It wasn't listed on this in the options of the report, but we had discussed it previously. The seawall at Bartles Beach, is that on the budget for where is that project of replacing
That
the
was
seawall?
in the 2024 approved budget for the most part. Now, as far as project completion, I'm not quite sure when that'll happen, but it was approved in this fiscal year budget.
Okay. Are there any, I'm just thinking to increase the lifetime before, if we do dredge, and increase the lifetime before we need to dredge again. You provided those satellite photos of, it seems like it's pretty clear sand is running along the seawall and entering the channel, and then even looks like halfway into the mill pond itself. Are there any design components, whether it's like a small break wall or something, to limit sand migration into the channel as part of the seawall project?
Yeah, I can provide some updates on that too. So we're not quite at the point as far as complete engineer drawings for the most part. That's why this will most likely be a roll over budget cost, etc. Because to the extent of the project, it cannot feasibly be engineered, designed, implemented, and completed within one fiscal year. It does require additional things required for it, permitting processes, etc. for the state. Now, I did meet with Patricia and Colton, as well as, I believe, Department of Agriculture, which is strange that they have oversight as far as
Yeah,
any
but
short.
they're the ones.
Yeah, you know as well.
That's right.
It was actually kind of strange to me that the Department of Agriculture is involved in some shoreline development stuff. But it was a representative from the Department of Agriculture, myself, as well as county representatives that met at Bartlett's Beach to discuss this project. We talked about some potential or viable options that we may be able to pursue for it to stop that sand mitigation or hopefully decrease it. Now, as far as the validity to them, I'm not quite sure. I haven't actually seen anything like that in effect. But we discussed potentials like if we build, which we do have to build a seawall. One of the things that was researched is can we do a riprap shoreline, can we do more natural, etc. Due to the actual location of Bartlett's Beach, it's receiving basically the majority of ice shoves from the northwest section of the lake. Due to the location of Bartlett's Beach, it's kind of spearheaded by that ice or ice shoves, which is unfortunate. If we were on the opposite end of the lake, I think riprap or natural shoreline erosion controls would be much more viable. And that was confirmed by a lot of other people within the meeting itself. But some of the options that were discussed is washboard stone laid along. So if this is going to be replaced as far as a cement seawall, potential washboard stone, which is kind of like a breaker barrier, so stone placed in front of the actual seawall itself to provide something to grab onto some sand rather than just washing along a smooth surface, may help. Another thing that was at least discussed was if we have a bump out within the actual concrete structure to maybe instead of one flat wall that perfectly funnels right into the channel, maybe there's some structures that could be designed into it to mitigate sand. Now, like I said, we're not at final engineer stage at this point to have an actual project, but available options or likely options will be discussed at the design stage. I can pretty confidently make that claim.
Okay. I think it would be important to include, to make sure that we're getting good bang for our buck with doing, if we decide to do this dredging project, that we're not just continuously having this issue with the sand migration.
And I would echo what you're saying, because I heard that same type of concern from a resident. So,
it's very valid.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, hopefully those aerial photos do help as well. That was 1 year ago, approximately this time, April 2023. You can very clearly see the defined distinction between sand versus silt. You can see very, very clearly the direction of travel of that sand.
Yep.
So what I can do is, when we get to the point of actual potential designs, maybe I can provide some design updates or anything like that to it. Like I said, I'm actually not quite sure what available options there are. Maybe when we do have continued discussions with engineers, they may know of solutions to help mitigate that more so than I do.
Yeah, it's completely outside of my area of expertise, but
Yours and mine both.
I think if it's brought up as an area of concern during meetings that are had with the engineers that are on the project, hopefully they can come up with some solutions that would help.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree strongly.
Again, if I can make the one claim too, we are not putting replacement sand on the beaches this year, which is nice. We don't have the need for it, so we won't put it on. In the past, it was kind of an annual occurrence. Build it up with sand, keep building it up with sand.
Do you think that's because you use the higher grit?
I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I think this year we didn't have, for one, there was lower lake levels, so there was less ice shoves and receding of that ice. I saw that being an issue at Sandy Beach specifically. With that ice being shoved onto the shoreline, when it melts and recedes, it pulls that sand away with it. And we actually saw that pretty drastically in 2022 at Sandy Beach. I didn't see that this year, but that could be because we had low lake levels. I'm not quite sure. It's kind of hard to quantify, I suppose. But it's something, just not replacing sand by default.
Well, and it certainly gets used. Bartlett's Beach and
It was jammed this past weekend.
right,
God, there were
which
hundreds of
is
people.
good, but still, that's also humans move things too.
Yeah, but I know there's natural things that pull it away as well.
I think all of the you just said are very valid. The other part of this, and we're moving maybe on a little bit to the recommendations of future agendas before we get there, but I think there's a couple other things that, as far as projects that we brought up, and this kind of want to get an update as to where they are with them. But before we do that, I just want to see, is there anything with A, discussion recommendation regarding the council maintenance preservation that we need to speak of before we go to?
I do. I have one issue I don't think we brought up, and if we're looking mostly at the problem being vegetative growth in the mill pond, which reflects, I believe, phosphorus to some degree. Not that the city council would do it, but I think in our recommendation, we might want to consider a formal recommendation to them to focus on that and work with the county, because the entire watershed for this lake is really south. There's, I mean, Main Street is the eastern border. Basically, Forth Park is the western border, and the highway out there, what is it, B, is the north. So your water is coming in from the south, and so any work on that by the county, along with RLI volunteer checking in that, we should encourage the city to be involved in that.
And if you look at the Rock Lake Improvement Association's website, they have a very good map of the watershed.
Yep.
And so that might be something we want to include in our link. So this is what we're talking about, and this is why we want to make sure that whatever we can do to mitigate any nutrients getting into the.
So the city, we should recommend, I think, we should consider recommending they get actively involved, possibly even fiscally, if they're going to help the county with that. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, it could absolutely be a portion of your recommendation.
The other thing, staying with the uses and maintenance and for the citizens, someone asked me about the signage for the mill pond, meaning access. Is there, where is the city when it comes to one right now saying boat launch to the mill pond? And if we do go forward with like fishing piers, signage that says fishing piers, signage that says whatever, so that people actually know if you turn here, that's what you're gonna find.
Extremely valid question. I'm glad you asked it. That was one of the pet projects of mine when I was with the DNR as well, as where the heck is this public access? So that is a state highway, so it has to be controlled or basically permitted by Department of Transportation, since it's State Highway 89. However, I am in the process of submitting a permit for right-of-way sign installations with the DOT.
We're talking Ferry Drive, right?
No, Main Street.
89, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So this is State Highway 89.
Yep.
A sign installation is basically saying boat landing or public access to be installed in the right-of-way pointing towards the mill pond on Main Street is being pursued, as well as the installation of Tree City USA signs both at the north and south entrances of the city. So those three signs are being proposed, as well as there is an additional one from Legendary Lake Mills, which by default, since it's in the state right-of-way, they would like to have some directional signage from some downtown businesses, etc., but it would be included hopefully in the same permit. But those three signs for city-controlled things would be directional signage to boat landing and public access, as well as a north and south boundary for Tree City USA. So we are doing that as you bring it up.
Well, and if not now, just have it permission to put fishing pier or something like that on that same sign, because you don't want to, keep on adding to it without, getting permission to say we're ready. The other one that came up was, if we do this, are you going to, the city, going to delineate parking, both trailers and car parking, similar to what they do down at Sandy Beach?
It's a very valid question that has not been discussed. I'm not quite sure. Maybe perhaps that's one thing we could bring up within a recommendation, or I can have discussions as well. Some of the things I may bring up then is that it's all gravel parking along the west end of the firehouse. That's all gravel parking. It'd be very hard to delineate parking and gravel. Perhaps it's something to where paving an area there could be considered, so parking stalls could be delineated, but actually something that has not been brought up before.
Are you allowed to park on, I guess, directly to the west of the fire department? On that gravel area?
That is the parking area, yes.
Okay.
Yep, along Veterans Lane, no, there is no parking on Veterans Lane with the exception of the handicap stalls by the Legion, just because it's a fire lane. But that gravel parking area is the designated parking area for the mill pond.
Okay.
And right now, it's sort of haphazard. It's people that will come in there and they'll back their kittywampus and
Well, the next thing too is if you park parallel with it, you're eliminating a ton of parking opportunities for it. That's one avenue that has not been researched yet, so actually good
And
bringing
with
it
this,
up.
with the fire department being there, that'll be important.
Yeah, I mean, they can't have somebody with the boat trailer blocking.
Yeah, if you,
Anything.
so potentially if the mill pond is dredged, you can theorize that there will be increased access to it.
Sure.
Now, with increased access becomes more vehicle traffic. With more vehicle traffic creates more parking issues. With more parking issues creates a potential limitation to firehouse access. So if you think butterfly effect.
The
Yes.
knee bone connected to the thigh bone.
so I just want that thought of
Very
brought up.
valid.
If you're gonna do that,
Yeah.
you wanna make
Yeah.
sure you have some defined parking.
Yeah.
And it was not considered within the feasibility study from my recollection. What I can do is we have all staff meetings on Tuesdays, every Tuesday. That's actually a topic that I can bring up because both firehouse staff or fire chief as well as Department of Public Works director will be there as well as their contract engineer. So all the heads that would be involved in it are in the same room. And that has never been discussed yet.
I think it's an important
Very
point.
valid point,
What's that,
actually.
Anita?
I think it's an important point.
Well, and the thing that, what Gray just said, you gotta make sure these fire trucks can get out and where these firefighters park.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, and then you also got, traffic coming out of the gas station there,
Yeah.
which is,
So to clarify, there is designated firemen or EMT access, like parking stalls, just specifically for responding. But like I was saying, with increased access becomes more potential for parking issues. So actually, I would like to bring this up because I don't believe that it's ever been discussed yet.
Yeah, and right now, fishing boats still take up a lot of room, but some people start trailering in potentially pontoons and such.
And-
It's a big space.
Yep. If
fight.
I could say as well, if permanent or delineated parking is made available, I would like to have, similar to Sandy Beach parking, single car parking for shoreline fishermen, or if you're unloading a non-motorized watercraft,
Yes.
versus trailered parking.
Yes.
There's a very big distinction between those.
Yes.
So I'd like to delineate those so we don't shut off access to non-trailered access.
No,
If you,
but I just think
Yeah.
it should be considered and investigated.
Yep.
The other thing is, and I just have no idea that I'm spending Mike's money because he pays the most taxes here probably.
With pleasure.
In that, who owns what we used to call the greenhouse lot that's just south of the mobile?
Oh,
I
that's
would
empty?
have to double check.
South side.
I believe it is very loose. I would have to double check in property records,
Okay.
but I believe that's very loose.
Okay,
So privately owned, it's not city owned.
okay.
You
Good.
said just south of what? I'm sorry. I
The
didn't-
mobile station.
Okay, thank you.
And there used to be a house on there, but it's gone. They used to call it the greenhouse. But that lot might be something the city might consider purchasing for parking access. And I'm only bringing that up for budgeting purposes and future planning. Don't let Barry know because he'll jack the price on it. I'm kidding, Barry. We would never do that.
I get it. But yes, it is privately owned, not owned by the city.
Okay. Yeah, I do think that as we're doing this, all things you're saying, we definitely need to look at some feasibility or impact statement for parking.
Very valid.
All right, anything else? Bicycles, you can put anywhere, right?
Well, that's something to talk about. Do you install a permanent bike rack?
Well, I
that's
think
something
you're
too.
for fisher
Yeah.
people and,
What I did was I rode my bike after school and I had a fishing pole in the back,
Yep,
so
yep.
increasing access.
so those are some things to consider. The, anything else before we, sort of come up with a recommendation or some sort of,
I would say,
Regarding
I would say, I mean, by all means, you can continue if you like, but this content that you say and provides me substantial amounts of direction to get more information. You don't need to make a recommendation at this point if you don't like, but this allows me a lot of opportunity to do research and come back at the next meeting and touch base with you.
Yeah. I think if we, if Eric can provide us a little bit more detailed information at the next meeting, then I feel like we're at a good, we should hopefully be at a good point to start drafting a recommendation to City Council.
I would agree.
And I don't want to skip ahead, but I did notice I will not be present on May 15th.
Nor will I. I was going to make that announcement because I thought we were meeting on Monday, and so I'm on an
Yeah.
insurance
What is happening with
committee
the...
in DC, and
yeah,
I'm committed to being there.
'Cause I thought we were meeting Monday. I thought I saw something that it was going to change to Mondays. No?
Not exactly. So
Okay.
we'll talk about that. But now we just have a issue that we will not have a meeting on the
You'll not have a
15th.
quorum.
We won't have a quorum.
Well, what about a city council representative?
I don't.
We can't say that yet because one has not yet been appointed.
Correct. And that person
Oh, yeah.
would not make us a quorum. It would be the two of us.
Because prior topics on the agenda. That is
So,
a very good point.
are we
The
allowed-
next thing you could do though too, you could schedule a special meeting. That is also an available option as long as it is noticed with prior notification time. If there is notice of quorum, if it's posted on the city website and all the normal, I suppose, notices are sent out, I would definitely reference Dan on this question, but there is an opportunity, I believe, to hold a special meeting outside of mandated meeting times. So you could cancel, and I would absolutely confirm with Dan. We could theoretically cancel the third Wednesday of the month meeting for May and instead host a specially noticed special meeting for this.
I think that would be a good idea, just seeing the kind of place we are with this City Council resolution and the fact that we have to draft the recommendation by, or give them the recommendation by June. Do they meet once? I
We
should
have
know
to do a
this.
recommendation, we have to give them a progress report.
Okay.
First
But
and
we might be
third.
at the point where
We
we're
may- yeah.
ready.
First and third Tuesdays in the month. Now, the next thing you could do as well, again, I would reference Dan, but I believe you can also hold a work session as well, like an additional meeting for the most part. So instead of having one meeting per month, you could request the posting of a special work session in addition to a monthly meeting, just to work on topics such as this. So there are a couple options we have here.
The important thing is there has to be notice
Yeah.
Yes.
that we're doing it and what it is.
So I would say let's bring up the topic. You would like to hold a meeting in May at some point. Let's reference Dan saying we will not have the potential for quorum at the scheduled meeting date and time. So what can we do to hold a meeting in May? I think is adequate for the most part.
Are you all okay with scheduling a meeting outside of the normal meeting time in May?
I am. I know
I
that
am.
that ninth one would not work for me. That I think it's May.
Again, I
9th,
apologize, for
whatever.
some reason I thought it was on Monday,
no,
that's why.
no needs to apologize.
Well,
That wouldn't
we'll
be
talk
tonight.
about that
Whatever
as far
that
as an
prior
agenda
one
item.
is.
That
So
is something
we,
that definitely is
It's usually on the third
It's
the
on the
workings of
third Wednesday.
Okay, so
government.
So I'm going to be
approval,
gone
So
all the way until the 15th. So it'd have to be after the.
Would you like me to reach out to Dan regarding that topic? Or what I can do is I can CC you, Tim. I'll send him the initial message, and we can go from there.
yeah, tell them. And so right now, if we can get some clarity, that Anita and I will be here on the 15th.
yes, that one I can make. So,
But we
But-
might change it to a different time, but you and I will figure out what works for both of us, and whoever, if they're appointed, the third, the liaison is.
So if there's not a third though, can you have a Parks Board meeting?
We can't have a Parks Board meeting, but what I'm hearing Eric say, we might be able to have a special meeting. So the
We'd still
special
need
might be Anita, me, and Eric.
Wouldn't we still need a quorum of our
I
committee?
don't, that's what he's gonna.
For
he'd
a
have
work
to find out.
session, I'm not quite sure, because a work session, no decisions are being made. As long as there's no motions or decisions
Okay.
being made, I believe you can hold a work session, which is basically just the compilation of data, et cetera, but there's no
Okay.
decisions actually being made. But this is why I would have to reference that.
And with that, where I'm thinking about this for this work session, might be advantage you, Anita, and whoever this person is, to get them up to speed as to what we are and what we're doing. That could be the work session, is just getting you comfortable with our next step, which is the recommendation. But right now, we don't have a quorum, or won't have a quorum, and I don't even know if having this new person would give us a quorum.
Yeah, we have a couple clarifying points
Yes,
to
we
check.
gotta
this
check that out with Dan.
Okay.
So if we had the work session, it would obviously be before this whole body meets, right? I mean, so we would have potentially two meetings in May. Is that what we're thinking?
Sure,
Could be.
if we find out the person that's gonna be our member and liaison is gonna be at that May 15th meeting, and that gives us a quorum, then we can meet, but we're gotta double check this,
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
know.
Yeah, I would definitely have to reference the
Okay.
attorney.
So then if we rescheduled a different meeting for later on we can do it as long as it's properly noticed, but then when would we meet? Because you said you were away.
Right,
until-
that's what I was saying, that you and I
I get it.
and this person
Yeah.
would have to figure out what works best for us, and then get it notified.
Yeah, I
in
understand
the-
that for the work meeting, but then for the other meeting, right?
So if
you
we
were
wanted to
saying-
have a meeting, okay, so if the normally scheduled one, or the currently scheduled one on the 15th, Mike and I can't make it.
Correct.
Yeah,
So that one, I think we were throwing out work session. Is that what you're thinking, where you guys can come and just discuss?
right? Is that
No,
what we're
no.
thinking?
I believe you
I'm
can
confused.
cancel, so from my understanding, I believe since there will not be quorum on May 15th, I believe you can cancel that meeting. There will not be a Parks Board meeting on May 15th because there won't be a quorum for it. What you could do is have a special meeting done in advance to that one, so you can work on this certain topic. Is that
Can I
correct?
propose an alternative?
Absolutely, yes.
We cancel because we're not going to have quorum the meeting on the 15th. I will be back late on the 15th and back the rest of the month. Can we have a special session that's just, I guess, a normal Parks Board meeting, anytime 16th through the end of May, just have a normal Parks Board meeting to
Potentially.
keep moving it forward.
But
Yes, if it's okay with Dan,
Yes.
as the attorney. And just to back up a little bit, I also want to find out from Dan, is if on the 15th, if we have myself and Anita and this new person, does that give us a quorum? So if it does, then I say then we can meet on the 15th.
Okay.
And in addition to the 15th, then we have another special one that brings you two and Anita and all of us up to speed onto what we kind of got up to speed on, or whatever, on getting details, whatever reports that
Yeah.
Eric would have on the 15th. But first we have to find out is, can we have a Parks Board meeting that qualifies as a quorum on the 15th?
before we discuss like availability and dates and times, we need to figure out if what we're doing is legal.
Yes.
That's what we need to figure out first.
Yes. And then to your point, yes, then I think we should have another meeting, a special meeting that entails whoever can be up there. But I don't want to cancel a meeting if we can have a meeting.
Yeah.
But I do want to find out if that person coming on, if my understanding from Aliza, that person will be selected at their next meeting, wherever that is.
They had city council last evening. It
So
would
2 weeks from now?
it's 5th Tuesday of the month. I believe it would be the first Tuesday in May.
Yeah.
Would be their next meeting.
So then that would be when they would appoint whoever is going to be our person. But I can call Dan, not tomorrow, tomorrow's not good. Friday I can call Dan.
Sure.
Or you can talk to Dan and say, give him a kind of a heads up of what we're looking at.
I think what we'll do is let's just both collaboratively work towards Dan so we both have an understanding.
Yes. That'd be good. And then we'll get you, we'll have another meeting. And then, all right, so hold that thought. Anything else on the agenda when it comes to
I
that?
can only hold one at a time, so don't bring anything else up.
Okay. So are we done basically with new business A, discussion recommendation?
Yes.
All right, and we don't need any motion or anything like that? All right. Now I'm going to B, discussion regarding the topics and amount of detail needed in the meeting minutes. And, are you done?
No, I'm just gonna.
Oh, okay. So that was the point being is that, and Anita, you made a comment, Mike has gotten all sorts of platitudes. That's a pretty good word, huh?
I don't even know what that means.
Actually, plaudits.
Plaudits, okay.
Plaudit. Platitudes is what I deliver, sort of hackneyed phrases. That's my specialty.
Kudos, let's just say.
So
let it
kudos
go.
is even better.
So yes, thank you. Kudos for the detail of the meeting minutes. And the council likes it, you commented, you like it. It's a lot of work for Mike.
I'm happy to do it.
So, if he's happy to do it, but going forward, I don't want the expectation to be that you have to be as detailed as Mike is to another secretary, in that these are all recorded now. So then it becomes, can it be a synopsis?
Yeah, I think Catherine mentioned that we still, I think we asked this question last meeting, and we still have to record the
Motion.
like motions and votes, that type of thing. But
I talked to Lisa about it.
okay,
Because I figured they're, along with the public, are major consumers, and she was concerned that if the secretary was spending that much time taking notes, they wouldn't be able to focus on the content of the meeting and thus make a good vote. Which may be true. I take notes on newspapers, so it's just part of what I do. But she was comfortable, and also apparently with the video, especially upstairs, you can go to an agenda item and get right to it. So it's really kind of up to us. I think it's probably up to each secretary how much time they want to spend. If I am the secretary, and if you folks don't find it onerous to have that degree of detail, it's easy for me just to do it that way, because that's how I've always done it. But I can certainly cut back, or if there's another secretary, you could then...
Which is fine. So if I'm hearing the discussion, the agreement is, Mike, you just keep on doing what you're doing?
If you want me to secretary, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. And I would, now, the other thing about that is that goes back to our announcements, but yes, so let's do that then. Our decision on that one, do we need a motion on that one, you experts? So we have an agreement?
I don't think so.
All right. So moving on to 9, any announcements besides you two not being
Yeah,
here
I
on the...
apologize.
No worries, because that was kind of where we were going with that.
Yep.
Uh,
I will say, with that being said, one of the perks of using city council chambers is we have easy Zoom access as well. If for some reason you are absent, absolutely cannot attend, just prior notification is fine. But if you just need to attend remotely, that venue offers us the opportunity to do that as well.
This one does not.
Correct.
which
and
is
even if we
another-
can't do that for the next one, I will be somewhere halfway over the Atlantic. So
Wow.
I will.
Someplace
The Azores or where?
Iceland and Ireland.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow.
For
Have you
work,
been?
or-
No, just I've never been out of the country, so my wife and I are.
You got your passports.
Yep.
And they're good for, what is it? It has to be at least, I believe, 6 months or 8 months after.
He's trying to be done.
Check on that.
He's
No.
too young from the war.
No, just because that.
We just got
them.
them.
Oh, then you're
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
So, any other announcements? Need anybody? All right, now I'm going to 10, recommendations for future agendas. And this is a little bit, I think in the agenda, we have to have the meeting date, or day, date, and time decided. And right now, that was, at this point, we had talked about Mondays at 5:30 on, what was it, the second Monday?
Yep, there are 3. So one of the issues as well with having one venue that multiple different entities use is, of course, availability. There are 3 available options that room will be available to meet at a regular meeting date and time. I want to reference regular meeting date and time where it's not sporadically booked, etc. I believe it was the first Monday of the month, and these are all at 5:30, let me say that, just for the sake of standardization. The first Monday of the month, the second Monday of the month or the second Wednesday of the month. I believe, I would have to double check with Madison. She handles the city hall room bookings, etc. But I believe those are our 3 available options. So basically at the next meeting, at the next Parks Board meeting, or available meeting whenever for the most part, if you would be able to pick one of those available options of those 3.
Yeah. And that we couldn't, because it wasn't on the agenda,
Yeah.
we couldn't really discuss it tonight and agree. And part of that issue was that because of the way the parks, not the park, the city council is, they had to put the proposal in, and then they had to let it go 1 or 2 cycles and do it again. So that's why. But right now, it's open for us to, and we'll keep it as it is no longer ordered as an ordinance.
Correct. So one of the caveats of this was uniquely Parks Board is specifically codified within ordinance to meet the 3rd Wednesday of the month at 5:30. I don't believe any other board or commission has that codified in ordinance. They all say they meet once a month at pre-selected dates and times, but they did not have a specific date and time codified. Because it was codified, we had to go through the process of doing so. I will not be having that code changed to reflect the same date and time to allow the board the flexibility to move if needed. So we don't kind of wind up in the same shoehorn we're
Lisa
currently
said
in.
the wording will be such at the discretion of the board.
Yes, yes.
But we still want to make it
Regular.
some sort of regular
Absolutely,
standard.
absolutely.
So we
Now-
can plan and everything else.
Exactly. Let's say several years from now, there are new Parks Board members, rotation, etc., and a new date and time is accepted. We just don't have to go through the process of changing codified ordinance.
So when would that codified ordinance be changed that we could conceive of?
It is as of last night.
Okay, I'm
Yep.
sorry, I didn't catch that. All right, thank
Yep.
you.
So that, just be aware of that, and again.
So can we decide now?
No,
we
no,
can't? Okay.
no.
But it wasn't on the
It
agenda.
does, yeah, exactly.
Right, okay.
But we
Yep.
can talk about it and decide at the next meeting, right?
Okay.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
And so, the other thing I want to put on the agenda is a welcome to the liaison. You know, welcome and get their name on there, and so somebody wants to come and say hi. The other thing that I think we should put on the agenda, even if we don't get to them, is the needs of Eric when it comes to the pricing of the.
Fee
But-
schedules.
Yeah, but I don't know if it has to be in this one because we want to get the recommendations going in June, but I do think we just need to kind of consider that those won't get pushed to the side.
I
all the
would
time.
say if I can provide some input, I would say because of the constraints of time, specifically focus on the mill pond. As long as we address the updating or at least looking at review of fee schedules, as long as we do it in this calendar year, that is fine by me.
Okay.
I would definitely say just for the sake of time, focus on
Okay, all right.
mill pond.
But any other things, agendas that,
Yeah, the standard email approach, I think we talked about the need for that, about what are we gonna ask the city specifically to not give us the dead-end municipal addresses?
I think
instead-
that would be within your power as a board member to basically request and use city staff resources to do that. I don't think that has to be discussed at the Parks Board level. So if it's something that you need to work with myself on, or work with Madison on, or Dave on, as a board member, you'd have the ability to do that.
yeah, I just think we just want to be like McCray and all sorts of forms.
In every way.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Every-
Even the youth
I
part.
want his youth
Yeah,
part,
yeah, even the youth
exactly.
part, that's a good look.
Well, I won't go that far. I'll take the youth. I'm too old for that.
But yes, I do think that, exactly, I just want to make it so it just forwards to me.
Okay.
But that's your discretion.
Yep.
Any
Might wanna
other,
think that too, though, then. And I can send you Dave's email address.
Oh, I've got Dave
You've got-
Newman?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've got
And
it.
what I will say too is, by all means, use me as a resource. I love working collaboratively with all of you. If you have a general question, or maybe a parks update, or even if it's not parks related, just city staff or any kind of recommendation or thoughts, please by all means reach out. I'd be more than happy to. If I can't answer your question, I can at least assist forwarding it to who can.
and on the other agenda items, do we need any other expert to come and say anything?
I guess
vis-a-vis Mill Pond?
at this, you're talking about the
Yes.
I think at this point we've done the information gathering, unless we feel there's something that we completely missed. I know that Eric, you had some interest in trying to get someone from the DNR to talk about aquatic species.
I mean, at this point, I would say you do have information from the county as well. You have
Yeah.
Patricia's comments on the existing memo. As long as you have enough to comfortably make an opinion, I would think it's at your discretion.
Yeah, I guess I personally feel that I'm not sure if gathering more information would necessarily be all that beneficial at this point, and may just delay.
I'm just putting it out there. Do we need to have anybody that says, because I know we had a couple that we wanted to, but if we're at a point now, so I think we're good.
Okay.
Any other agenda items though?
Would it be too premature to maybe put an update on, about Sandy Beach? Or,
What I can do is, I think that would be within our discretion to work as well. If you would like further updates on Sandy Beach within a director's report, I think that's absolutely fine. So instead of just doing like a bulletized, I try to keep them very general. Like if, I like to keep them general so you know the topic. If you would like specific details on them, I can go into detail with them upon request, but I try to keep them fairly generalized within a report. But that's one thing too, if it's requested and you guys would like more updates on Sandy Beach specifically, I can just go into further detail in a director's report.
Does that satisfy you, Anita?
I have mixed feelings because, the director's report would be available, the printed comment, the printed format as part of the agenda, right? Or would it be just, yeah,
No, it's
okay.
part of the
Yep,
agenda.
it would be open and shareable.
Okay, so, I mean, just so that people, if they are interested in hearing more, they know it's gonna be discussed.
And
you
plus
know.
too, it's I always like to keep it open, like instead of going through each bullet point in the director's reports, if there's ones that I want to highlight or if there's ones that you would like further information on, I always like to keep that open and available. Like if you just want me to breeze through, or if you want me to spend a couple minutes going into detail on something, don't have an issue with that at all.
Okay, because I know some people are asking questions, so if we could, at least maybe get a little more detailed update on
I will
that.
say the past couple months has kind of been broken record. There hasn't been much updates. Now, I do anticipate if we have like our general kickoff meeting with the architect firm and the restaurateurs, I would expect much more detail available or updates available at the next meeting than there have been in the past, just because things are progressing.
Well, and to Anita's point, and what been commented about these all being recorded, if those could be tagged, so at a time, so if someone wanted to hear more in depth of what Eric has report, we could have it time stamped on the minutes or
the agenda.
the.
I think that's how he does it, doesn't he?
Yes, yep.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's how
really
Dave-
helpful.
Yeah, time stamped in the agenda. So what we can do too is like do a
Yeah.
director's report. You could potentially have a link to a subset of Sandy Beach, or the nice thing too, having the agenda as an attachment, or the director's report add as an attachment in the agenda. They can see my director's report being like, there's a lot of detail on Sandy Beach. It's somewhere in the video of that director's report also.
Yeah, but I think that would get at the D that you have, that
Yeah.
everything is open and transparent, and we asked and answered, and same thing when it comes to the public comments or the emails. We share those. I think if we can sort of timestamp them as best we can, that will just help people find things without having to
And
go through everything.
the director's report too, I mean, it's, like I said, very generalized. If there's the whole intent is to update you guys to a general monthly's operating as well as the public viewing it. If there's something you would like me to focus on more or change format, and by no means opposed to any format changes whatsoever. Whatever's easier for people to understand and see. So,
Yeah, that's I think the board, at least since I've been on it, is we want to make sure that everybody knows they have.
yeah. And same thing too, if you'd like to make a suggestion or anything, I'm by all means all ears.
Thank you. I do think tagging, is a really great idea though, because some people don't want to watch the whole thing.
Oh,
You
yes.
know what I mean? It's like, we don't want to.
Yes.
Some people choose not to watch.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
Well, that's one of the reasons I do the minutes like that. Personally,
Yeah.
it's much faster for me to just read a
Well,
summary
I would
rather
have
than
to
have
agree.
to wade through.
Yeah, yeah, so it's two different options for
Yes,
people. Yeah.
yes.
I just lost my thought.
Get used to it.
Yes. It had to do with,
Watching, access to information maybe, or?
I really
You'll
do
get it,
license
you'll get
maps.
it. Come back on the way home.
Yes, right. Wait 7 minutes, it'll come.
Wait for the special meeting to tell us. what
That's
it was.
right, that's right. So the next meeting is agreed, 5:30, May 15th, 2024. Special meeting to be determined, all right? And it is now 8 p.m. and we are adjourned.